Hey everybody, welcome to Fatso Radio, episode number 65. And tonight I have a special guest, Chris Muratis. Chris, welcome to the show, my brother.
Thank you for having me, my good man.
It is my pleasure, Chris. Folks, I've known Chris for a long time. I think we probably met Chris back in 2006, maybe?
Yep.
Okay, 2006, back at the old BlackBerry days. We had one hell of a time. We had a million of hell of a times. And Chris and I have a ton in common. We love food, we love comedy, we love art, we love different sports, we love everything. Chris is a UX designer, product designer, musician as well. Like I said, we've known each other for a long time. We have a lot in common. Chris is from Greek background. I come from an Italian background, both first generation Canadians. So like I said, growing up a lot of ways, I was visiting you in your house and I see your grandmother very much so reminded me of my grandmother and then my family and vice versa. So like I said, we have a lot in common. We have a lot in common as well with weight loss and the struggle over the years. You've tried the diets. I'm sure you tried almost every diet. I've tried almost every diet. So thanks so much for coming, Chris, and welcome to the show, my brother.
This has been a long time coming.
I know, man, for sure. Well, so maybe the first thing I want to get into is a little bit about you yourself. So music. So that's one of the things about you that I've always loved is your ability, of course, to play music, but just your ear for music, and just you've always every time I chat with you, you're like, what do you listen to? Something I've never listened to, which is not that hard because I don't have a very wide range. But when did you get into music yourself, and when did you pick up a guitar, or was it the first instrument?
You know what? I got into music really young. I think I was like 6 or 7 years old when my older brother, I don't even know how he acquired it, but he got a Metallica cassette of the Black Album, and that was kind of like the first real music that me and my brother listened to that was like outside of my dad's record collection of old Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin and Nazareth records and all that kind of classic rock. So that's how I got into music. The first time I decided that I wanted to play guitar was actually, I was watching Much Music back in the day when they actually played music videos. And I saw the music video for Live Forever by Oasis. And I saw Noel Gallagher, with his round Beatles, John Lennon sunglasses on, and he was playing a Les Paul. And I just thought he looked so badass. And I thought, like, I want to do this. I want to learn how to play guitar. And it actually took, I think, 3 times starting before I actually finally stuck with it. But yeah, I was 10 or 11 when I finally started and stuck to it, and never looked back. Became obsessed with it from the moment I figured out how to play some power chords.
Yeah, so that's pretty early, right? I mean, 10 or 11 years old to kind of, like you said, get the obsession quite early. Did you get any pushback from your family, or your family's like musical as well, or artistic, and they were cool with everything?
Yeah, they were pretty indifferent to it. I mean, when I started concentrating more on guitar than studying in high school, my mom had a bit of an issue with it, but like all in all, though, they didn't really care.
Sweet, awesome. So you've just been playing over the years, right? I guess.
Yeah.
Have you ever been in any bands?
Yeah, I've been in a handful of bands. Released, I think, technically two albums between 2 different bands.
Oh, okay.
And played on a couple different tracks for my friend and local producer Dub J on some of his work for his hip hop project, which has always been pretty fun as a guy who's grown up listening to rock and heavy metal, like doing work on hip hop. But I mean, music is music and creating is creating, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
It's fun, and it's actually it's a neat experience because he pushes me to do things I wouldn't normally do in the studio. So
sweet.
It's neat.
Yeah, I remember actually laughing. Me and you both laughing at my taste of music over the years. my hip hop choices. Let's just say that. But yeah. So then, as far as the move, I guess not the move, but just introduction into graphic design and all of that stuff. When did that stuff start? Just high school, or after?
So the interesting thing is that they do both play they intertwine very, very closely. I mean, I was always artistic as a kid. Like I really enjoyed art and drawing and super, super into that kind of all throughout school. But it wasn't until like later in high school where I was actually taking graphic design courses at our high school, which from what I understood back then, and this is 2001, you know, our high school at the time was one of the first to offer like pretty elaborate technology programs in graphic design and like communication technology and all that stuff. So I got really got into it then. And you know, after high school, being in bands, musicians are broke. You kind of have to do everything DIY. So since I had a knack for design and I'd always dabbled around like making websites and stuff in high school, I figured this can't be that hard. I'll make our band's website, and then that turned into I'll make another band's website of a band that, you know, we're friends with, and then it just grew and grew and grew. And the friends that I had who were also musicians, they started growing their careers and actually going into more prominent bands and getting bigger and bigger. So my clientele grew bigger and bigger as I was freelancing. And, you know, by the time I actually had a pretty respectable portfolio, we were working together at BlackBerry, and a design job came up at BlackBerry, and I thought, what the hell, I'll throw my hat in the ring. I didn't think anything of it. And then lo and behold, your brother was my boss.
Yeah, I should remember that. I forgot. Yeah. Wow. So it's amazing, just kind of, I mean, they are connected, like you said, right? I mean, it's art is art, right? And that's awesome.
Art.
And then, I mean, the next thing, like you said, comedy. I mean, since I can remember the minute I met you, we were probably laughing about some kind of either an Italian joke or a Greek joke, or who's getting so lucky, or who's calling me a spaghetti bender, or whatever it was. But yeah, so I mean, it's funny, you know, we've kind of joked over the years about growing up, but just for a recap, like you said, your parents are Greek, right?
Yeah.
Come from the islands, or yeah?
Yeah, my mom is from both my parents are islanders, and my on the complete opposite sides of Greece. My mother's on the west, the farthest west point of the Greek islands, from an island called Kefalonia, and my dad is on the most eastern side of the Greek islands. Like it's like a stone's throw away from Turkey, called Lesbos.
Okay, cool. So growing up, and like you said, I mean, it's funny. I mean, you're 10 years younger than me, maybe around there, right?
34.
Okay, so
I'm 85.
All right, yeah. So I'm 78. So yeah, it's 7 years, right? So although I mean, still sort of in the same generation, but also some differences. I think we kept us kind of similar, or what shone a light on a lot of our similarities. Like I said, we're the immigrants. My dad's from Italy, you know, so growing up here in Canada, seeing a lot of the things. One of the things the next thing I guess that was really brought us together was weight loss. Or I mean, at first was the interest into weight loss, and then the struggle, of course, and then the kind of camaraderie into what works, what doesn't work, and then of course, you know, we get into the kind of the bigger spectrum, I guess, or the broader view of what does it mean as far as a holistic view, right? It's more than just our diet. It's what's in the shelves, in the, you know, the stores, what's kind of, you know, promoted and everything. But so let's talk about that a little bit as far as diet. When I started back at BlackBerry, I want to remember it's kind of my journey, right? I mean, by 21, I was about 300 pounds. But when I started at BlackBerry, actually, 2005, I just lost around 30 or 40, maybe even 50 pounds before that, and it was Atkins. So 2005, and I was around 250 pounds, maybe 260 pounds. Wasn't my biggest by any means. And then, you know, as the years went by, I broke my hand that year, whatever excuses, I got bigger and bigger. But one of the first things I remember talking to you about was the fact that you did Atkins as well. And how did that come into, or how did that come into, like, when did you do that? Did you struggle with your weight right at the beginning as well? And with another great segue, let's get right into that. Yeah.
You know, I think they're all excuses, but I definitely do think that, you know, when you grow up in an immigrant household, like a Greek house or an Italian house, like the three main pillars that our families and our culture are based on are food, family, and guilt.
Yeah, it's true.
And you know, and say I actually said this in a best man speech when I was best man at a Jewish wedding, that, you know, one of the reasons why we initially got along so well is because Greek culture and Jewish culture, just like Italian culture, it's based on food, family, and guilt, except for on the Jewish side, the guilt is better, and on the Greek side, the food is better. So,
There you go.
um,
The
but
the Greeks will fight about the food, so that's fair.
yeah, but yeah, no, I was always a bigger kid. I mean, that's just, part of it. You always hear from like your grandparents or your parents like, eat, you're too skinny, you're like you're big and strong, or you know what I
Yep.
mean. It's just
Be a big boy. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, so like I had always kind of yo-yoed with my weight too, and the job that I had before BlackBerry. So I started in January 2006 at BlackBerry, and September of 2005. So we're only talking 4 or 5 months before I actually started at BlackBerry, maybe even August 2005. So within 6 months of starting, I had heard about this diet from a guy that I worked with at the call center that I was in, who was telling me about his weight loss journey and how he lost a bunch of weight on this diet called Atkins, and he was telling me about it, how like basically he just ate meat and cheese and vegetables, and I remember him telling me like, oh yeah, I'd shred some cheese, roll it up in some mortadella and like a mayo dip, and that would be my thing. And I thought at the time, this sounds like the easiest diet in the world. Like,
Sign me up.
yeah. So I read the book and I gave it a try, and I dropped like from the heaviest I was from back then to when I actually started BlackBerry, I went from 287 to 210.
Yeah. All right. So sorry, as you were getting into the Atkins again?
So the call center that I was working at before I started BlackBerry, my one buddy there, he was telling me how he lost a bunch of weight, and he was on this Atkins diet where you just ate basically like protein and vegetables. And when he told me about like eating meat and cheese and like dipping it in mayonnaise and like for a snack, and I just thought this is the easiest diet in the world. Like I'm gonna crush this thing. And I bought the book and I read it, and while I was reading it, I thought like this sounds revolutionary. And I started it, and it was just I still remember like the first few days having that consecutive weight loss day after day after day, and they were big jumps too, like 5 pounds, 6 pounds, 3 pounds, 3 pounds, like it was big. And like it's like it was melting off, and you're like, I can't believe what's happening right now. And like from there it was just like boom, and it was like, okay, like this is clearly a thing. But just like with keto, you start telling people what they're doing, and suddenly everybody becomes a dietitian and nutritional expert saying, well, this is why it's not going to work. But I feel like weight loss is like one of those things where everybody becomes an expert when you start talking about it. Same with, I don't know, finance and investing. Like there's a few topics where it doesn't matter who's in the room. Everyone's going to have a super strong opinion. And it's kind of like, what? I've seen you post this before. Nobody will say anything if you're eating fast food every single day, or you're drinking, or you know what I mean? But the minute you say, hey, I'm on this new diet, I feel like people will try and downplay it or dismiss it, because I think they think like, well, if I'm not doing it, then I'm missing out, and I don't want to think that I'm missing out. So it's easier for me to just put it down and say, no, it's just a fad, than have to actually dig into it myself and see, is this something that I should be doing? That's where I think the actual deep rootedness of people dismissing, keto or Atkins goes. Because I mean, it makes a lot of sense. It really does make a lot of sense when you think back to before we had mass-produced food, boxed food, or even people who weren't on keto. Most nutritionists will say, I've heard the theory of only buy things on the perimeter of a grocery store, because that's where you're going to find your fruit, your vegetables, your fresh meats, and
eggs, your dairy,
eggs, dairy, and it's only in the middle of the store, the aisles, where you get your starches, and well, not starches, but your boxed foods and carbs and all the highly processed stuff.
Yeah.
But if you're just eating natural foods, like that's half the battle right there. If you can just cut out processed food, carbs, and and sugar, which the more and more, even though I'm not on keto right now, just refined sugar itself is,
Exactly.
I think is the goddamn devil.
It is. You're right. It almost like I say it as a joke, you know, it's a demon, the sugars, but it makes people do things, not crazy things, but it kind of makes your behavior, right? It makes your eating patterns, things that aren't healthy for you, right? If you eat, trying to even teach the kind of the girls that, you know, you eat something that's pure sugar, all it does is makes you hungry in a little while later. That's all it does for you, right? Some not negative things as well. Maybe some gives you energy for a second, right? But if you're keeping on if you keep on have to eat something, or sorry, if you have to eat something over and over and over again, how nutrient dense is it? How satiating is it? How good is it for you? If you eat a steak or a piece of meat or a roast or whatever it is, or even a chicken leg or something, and you know it's better for you, right? It's got nutrients, it satisfies you, and you don't have to go and graze all day long. Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, one of the things about keto as well that you touched on, it makes a lot of sense to me was, and just like Atkins, is that deep down inside, it makes a lot of sense to a lot of us. But like you said, I think a lot of us are torn. We're like, holy shit, I've been programmed to do this or to believe this, and I've been taught to do this. But also I'm torn because innately, this makes sense in our blood. The fact that we evolved eating these kind of meats and these kind of cheeses and all this stuff, you know, and even the need for salt is a new thing that I'm discovering. I need a lot of salt to feel actually optimal. I need a fair amount of salt. So we're torn, a lot of us, and then it takes a leap of faith for a lot to just jump and say, you know what, F it. I'm just gonna do it and whatever, see what happens. And then you start getting, like you said, people say you're crazy. Other people are going, good for you, fucking do it, right? Other people saying you're crazy. And then when you start seeing results, like that's the best thing, because a little bit of result, as you've seen, right? You lost, how much did you lose? Like a fair amount at that point.
50 plus, like.
Oof, right? And yeah, and when you lose weight and you're sharing it, like what I'm doing, sharing the stories, and it, you know, inspires other people to do it. And but at the same time, the as many people as I'm inspiring people to fight back as well. And I understand that's life, right? People are kind of set in their ways, whether they're invested for financial reasons or whether they're invested intellectually. Maybe they feel like, a lot of people have a problem admitting they're wrong, right? A lot of people have a problem they're changing their mind. Everybody I know, right? So I mean, it's not even that we're wrong, because we're not wrong. This isn't my stuff, right? Oh, by the way, I should tell everybody, this is your logo. Thank you very much for this logo. Fatso Radio. Sure.
It was a fun logo to create.
Yeah, we'll tell about the story about that. But yeah, listen, like it makes a lot of sense to a lot of people. But like you said, we struggle. And even when you were talking to our family, I remember talking to you years ago about this. Even when you talk to, you know, your uncles, your aunts, your mom, your dad, the older people, like it makes sense. You're not going to eat carbs all day to them, right? They know you can't just eat just bread, right? I mean, even though they'll get you bread if you're hungry, I go have a cookie or a snack or right, whatever. Even growing up, I had breadsticks a lot. But I'm talking to the old people, and the people that seem to be the healthiest of my relatives, it's funny, you know, I have a couple uncles and aunts, whatever. They eat meat and cheese, a little bit of this, a little bit of vegetables, mostly, you know, meat and cheese, and it's not, you know, and not that often. That's another thing. Twice a day, maybe. My uncle lives, I think he's 90 now almost. Zero, I can't remember how old you are. But he's like, you know, one big meal a day. That's all I need. He's good. That's all he needs, you know. But he's probably more than most 30 or 40-year-olds because their meals are smaller or they're more, you know, more frequent. And it's such a message that's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's every dietitian, like you said, you know, you start talking about weight loss, you start talking about eating fat and eating cheeseburgers. I lost 100 pounds eating McDonald's and Burger King, you know, cheeseburgers and bacon every morning almost. But when people start saying things that, oh, now all of a sudden you're a dietitian, you know, it's the same idea. It's like, no, I don't have all the answers, but I'm doing what works for me. Try it out, right? And people want studies, they want this, they want that, but hey, try it. You know, like you said, it is a leap of faith. It's scary, but I don't know. Do you see that would you feel we're going somewhere with this? Do you feel like it's?
I feel like keto came along at the right time, because, you know, first Atkins came along, it was villainized as like this fad diet. You know, I remember my mom was like, you can't do Atkins, you know, you're going to hurt yourself. It's going to be like the Scarsdale diet that was like back in the 80s or 90s that my aunt did apparently, and she got sick, which you know,
Who knows?
Greeks are never over dramatic and embellish.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, she might have had a cold and she might have nearly died, but
Exactly. It was all because of this diet. She did for a week.
yeah. And uh, but anyways, you know, Atkins came, I think, and came and went, but then the shift happened. I think, like, you know, around the later 2000s, like pre 2010. I don't know if it was social media or whatever, but like
Yeah.
people were trending towards healthier lifestyles and just being healthier, and then there was the whole gluten-free wave of things that came about. And you know, I have strong opinions on gluten-free. Like, I get it. If you're a celiac and you legitimately have an intolerance, or you're deathly anaphylactic to having, you know, to gluten, I can totally sympathize with that, because those are legitimate allergies. The same way that if you get stung by a bee and you have an anaphylaxis allergy to bee stings, it's like, that's life or death.
Yeah.
But you know, a lot of people were just becoming gluten free for the sake of, hey, it's a new fashion. It's fashionable to be gluten free, and
Yeah.
not to say that you don't feel better when you don't eat gluten,
Yeah.
because I do think you do. You never feel sluggish.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. I think it is nuanced with the whole, celiac and gluten intolerance. Like, yeah, it's a spectrum, like you said, right? There's some people that there's an intolerance to it, but not enough to, like you said, kill them, but just make them feel like shit or make them gain weight enough to be a problem. But you're right. I think a lot of people jumped on it right away because it also was very novel, right? And it's novel for a reason. It was working.
Yeah. So, and I
Yeah.
think, you know, lots of people moving to gluten free. Like, I remember I had a friend who was gluten free, or yeah, who's gluten intolerant, and I think fairly severe. I don't think he was like anaphylaxis. He would, like, you know, swell up and die, but like, he was, you know, and in high school. And I thought, when I heard the words gluten free, I'm like, what is this weird disease you have? What the hell are you talking about? You can't eat
Yeah.
bread, like.
Yeah.
um and you know, but now, like, just gluten free, you go to any restaurant, you're gonna have a gluten free option on almost anything.
Oh yeah.
I think to get to the point here is that I think you know, keto came after that, and after, you know, being healthy and being healthy active lifestyles became very, very, very prominent. And I think social media was the vehicle of getting that to the forefront, and like working out and fitness models and like all that stuff. I think keto came at the perfect time, where I think it's only been continually gaining momentum. I have not seen I've not seen it go up and then come down the way Atkins did, because keto's been around now for a while, and it's only growing, and it doesn't seem to have the same kind of the naysayers don't seem to last long. Like, there always seems to be more momentum building up, and rightfully so. Like, I do think it works. It's not easy, but it makes a lot of sense, and you absolutely can't deny the results at all.
Mhm.
It's impossible. And if you're on keto and you aren't seeing the results, I know people say that I'm not just doing this for weight loss, it's a lifestyle, and I get that. You have to embrace it as a lifestyle.
Mhm.
But if you're truly doing it and doing it the way you're supposed to be, it is damn near impossible not to lose any
Yeah.
weight as a byproduct. Like,
Yeah, I see it the same way. If you need to lose weight, right, you'll lose weight on this diet. I think, and that's what it is. Like the keto, or even I want to talk a little bit more about the meat heavy keto, even into the carnivore stuff that a lot of people are doing, which I'm doing now as well. It's like, it's kind of, for a lot of people, it kind of fixes whatever ails them. Not everything. I don't want to say it's the perfect pill, but if weight's an issue for you, if blood sugar is an issue, cutting out sugar is going to help your blood sugar. I promise you. Public service
any,
announcement. It's going to help your blood sugar, right?
anytime that I've been on keto, and I've done keto, I think 2 or 3 times, and each time I've been on it for about a month, one of the things on top of the weight loss, and on top of the, like, just never feeling sluggish after a meal. You know, obviously after it takes a couple days to shake the keto flu and get all the glucose out of your system. But one of the biggest noticeable thing outside of those is the inflammation in your body gone.
Yeah, joints. Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Interesting.
I inherited my mother's crappy knees,
Yeah.
and you know, never had like a sports injury or something. Like, just my mom had some degenerative knee problem where it just, it runs on that side of the family. And I've got shitty knees, and I just noticed that, like, yeah, like the soreness from like getting out of the car or like standing up, gone.
Yeah. Wow.
Inflammation goes away. So there's legitimate science behind this that you can't deny.
Yeah. Like you said, I mean, it makes sense to a lot of people. I think you said once you accept that, okay, it's different. Okay, it's all the we really do have to accept the fact that we're going against a lot of things that we were told, right? So on one hand, you can say, yeah, go eat your fat and eat your meat and everything. But on the other hand, someone's gonna say, wait a second, I was just told for the last 30 years to eat 6 meals a day, tons of plants, tons of fruits and vegetables. So, everything, and all healthy grains. I was told to do that, for the last 30 years. So it's interesting that you
Yeah.
said that you heard about Atkins, keto even, was it in high school or no, you were saying
Uh,
at the end
the
of high school?
call center that I was working at before BlackBerry. So I mean, I was 19 years old.
Yeah,
So it
so
was,
it's 20 years ago, right?
yeah.
Or no, yeah. And yeah, like you said, it's getting more mainstream, and it's working. And I said at the same time, it makes sense to a lot of people because they're saying, but like you said, we are not to go back and forth, but they were told this many times a day, eat this many times a day, keep that engine running, keep that engine running. And I think that inflammation, there's a lot of reasons why we have no or lowered inflammation with keto. But one of the reasons is that you're not processing food all day. Right? Like when you're on keto, you're going to have less meals a day. Even if you're just starting out keto and you're kind of still at 3 meals a day, those 3 meals are going to be easier on your system, right? There's less bloat and there's less, inflammation that comes with that a lot of times. And inflammation follows your blood sugar as well, right? So I think for a lot of people, it kind of helps. One of the struggles I often hear people right away is like, well, bread, carbs, how do I get rid of it? Or how do I break that addiction, right? And at first I heard people say it kind of as a joke, and then well, addiction is strong words. Now I'm glad people are actually shining light on the idea that sugar is absolutely an addiction, right? In my mind and a lot of people's minds. And it's like, you just got to pull the tape off in my eyes. You just got to do it, right? Wean yourself off of sugar. I'm not sure if you can, maybe you can, but if you're the type of person that can wean yourself off of anything, you probably don't have a problem with anything to begin with.
Well,
or you might not.
Sugar isn't everything.
Mm-hmm. That's the other thing too.
Whether you're on keto or not, I saw a girl on a reporter on BuzzFeed. Not that they're like the most credible investigative journalism, but she did I think a month challenge where her goal was to not eat any processed sugar. If she got sugar from like a sweet potato or like maple syrup, things that occur naturally, fruits or whatever, fine. Just at least get rid of the refined processed sugar. Natural sugars are nowhere near as bad. And in moderation, there's absolutely nothing wrong with them, I think. But even just her trying to find everything that does not have sugar in it is really, really, it is in everything. You'd think there's not going to be sugar in this. And you're like, why is there sugar in a hot dog or in like, maybe that's a bad example, but you know what I mean? Like why is there sugar in things that like, you're like, this is not sweet.
Yeah.
Why? If I was to make this myself at home, there would be no sugar in this recipe. Like, why is there sugar in this? Like taco seasoning.
Yeah.
If you ever like, because that was one of the things that I used when I was in keto to season things, and like the store-bought taco seasoning, when you look at it, it's got flour, it's got sugar in it. You're like, this is seasoning for meat.
Yeah. Cornstarch. What do you need cornstarch for? Yeah.
It's cornstarch. It's like you think of chili powder, you think it's got chili powder or like taco seasoning. I mean, chili powder, onion powder, garlic powder, oregano, cumin. You know what I mean? Like these are all just spices.
You're right. When you come all that processed food, anything that you said in the center of the aisles, or the boxed foods and the stuff like that. I think it's two things. It's funny. I think on one hand, it's we got super processed everything in life. We got super industrial. We got super automated. We got super fast. So it's like, well, let's to make all these processed foods, you need a little bit of sugar to make it taste good. Because if you take out the fat, that's the other thing too, right? You got hijacked by the low fat craze, 80s and 90s, and and my dad told me way a long time ago when I first did my first diet, he's like, Carlo, if you take the fat out of something, it's going to taste like shit. I said, okay. I was laughing, whatever, fat-free yogurt, skim milk I was drinking back in the old days. Skim milk, oh my God. I don't even want to milk my house anymore.
Yeah, we drank that. We
And
drank
then
that.
you add sugar. If like you said, take out the
When you
fat.
take the fat out, you add sugar, and any dietitian will tell you that they would rather you eat a natural fat like butter or lard than sugar, because your body knows how to process a natural fat like butter or olive oil, grapeseed oil. Your
Yeah.
body doesn't know what to do with sugar.
Exactly. Well, and I think that, I mean, from what I read, that it was the form of sugar like that, you know, that's super, that really easy, that high glycemic index. Actually, it's funny. Flour or white flour, I believe, has a higher glycemic index than white sugar does, just because it spikes your blood sugar so high. But sugar like that was so rare in nature years and years and years and years ago. Honey, or like you said, fruit a couple times a year. But fruit comes with fiber, it comes with water, it comes with a peel, it comes with the bird shit on it that comes with it, right? In the old days, right? You were eating everything. We had acidic stomachs that could just destroy stuff, right?
That's why they say, you know, even when you're on keto, like you can eat fruit and nuts and, you know, all those things when you're on keto, because when you think about the concept of keto is how our ancestors ate, you would find maybe a handful of berries in nature.
Yeah.
You're not going to find a bush with 10,000 blueberries on it and just have your way with it.
Or apple juice, which is the concentration. You never have juice in nature, right?
Yeah, like you eat one apple, not a bushel.
Or you would put that apple in the pig when you roast it, like
Yeah,
stuff it in
yeah.
vegetable. Yeah, exactly.
The thing that I found interesting, like the more and more I think about how keto works, like the more it just always continually makes sense. But the thing that I find fascinating though is that if you were to take the opposite of keto, which is if you had a diet that is completely like fat free and it is higher carb, you know, both methods can work.
It's true.
But I just find it interesting that each method can exist when you take away the other, but it's very, very hard to get the two together and actually be able to have an effective, healthy lifestyle. And I think part of it too, also, because I look at some of the people, some of the fittest people I've known and worked with, who are never necessarily on a diet. There are a couple people that I've known who are always fit, but if they're like going on a cruise or something, they do like a shred diet where they go like do like a keto thing and they just go crazy before they go on a booze cruise or something. So they got the 6-pack abs and can hook up for a week and binge drink. But I look at those people and they have the quote balanced diet down. But the thing about a balanced diet, I think, is that I think it's in the eye of the beholder. Because to somebody who, you know, we would traditionally in society look at somebody who's very healthy, they're very fit, they don't eat a lot of crap. Their balanced diet, you know, their bread or their, you know, their carb intake might be something that is way on the healthier side. Like they eat like a whole grain bread that like crumbles in your hand, or they'll eat like one wrap and all the rest of their meals are like, you know, they'll have maybe oatmeal or they'll have fish in a salad. Like to them, it's like I'm eating balanced because I am eating everything. Whereas another person would think I'm eating balanced and every meal they eat is like super carb heavy and fat meat heavy. Like their idea of balanced diet means I can just eat everything. And that's also not the case. So I think that's why also you get people who are like balanced diet, there's nothing wrong with that. Well, it's not everybody has the same concept of what a balanced diet is of yeah, I eat some whole grains but mostly fruits and vegetables and fish and whatever, versus a guy's like, yeah, I eat whatever I want, burgers and malt liquor, and you know what I mean? Like it's
Exactly. Yeah.
so,
Well, yeah, and it's funny. Like we've been told, right, what's healthy for us, and we've been told what's a balanced diet too for years and years and years. So it's hard to, like, you know, when someone says eat these heart healthy grains, there it still says heart healthy grains on a package of wraps right now, or a package of bread right now. Heart healthy grains, when everything in my soul tells me that grains are bad for your heart. Everything, honestly, and my being tells me that, right? And it's so funny that, but like, and people are catching on to the idea that, you know, fat, you know, is better for you and healthier for you. But you mentioned one thing that was earlier. You said, how do we balance? If I think I got this right, the problem is that you can lower your carb intake and lose weight, and you can lower your fat intake and lose weight. You can. They're both effective. It's interesting, but you can't eat carbs and fat together. you'll
No.
gain weight.
They
That's an
can't
interesting.
they can't exist together. That's
Exactly.
one thing I've noticed.
Yep.
If you eat a lot of carbs, you
Yep.
can't eat fat. If you eat a lot of fat, you can't eat carb, because
Yeah.
your body is going to pick one as a fuel source, whether it's glucose with the carbs,
Yep.
or fats and ketones for the fats, and
Exactly.
it's going to pick one, and
Yep.
whichever one it doesn't pick, all of that's just going to turn into fat that goes into your body, and there goes the weight gain. So I find it very interesting that you can do both. Personally, in my experience, it's much more enjoyable to do a keto or Atkins diet because fats taste better.
Absolutely.
Meat, cheese, and all those things, they taste
Eggs.
better than
Yeah.
oatmeal.
Yeah. Well, exactly. And in fact, in order for oatmeal to taste good, you need to put some
You
either a
put
fat
sugar
or
on
butter or
it.
a sugar. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Like
A
plain
cream or milk,
fat.
right? Adding milk to cereal. Why? I mean, cereal is a bowl of sugar, right? And it says heart healthy. I don't know if they're coming off of there now, but yeah, you're right. It's like, but both, because you're saying your body needs a fuel source, fat or carbohydrates, right? And the way I'm looking at it, and the reason why Atkins but even keto and even carnivore now makes a lot of sense to me, is that if you have to choose between a fat source, there's a lot of vitamins that come with this animal or with the fat, right? There's these fat soluble vitamins. You just cannot get these from sugar alone. So while you can lose weight on a low fat diet, what's it doing to your body? What's it doing to the long-term health of you? What's it doing to your gut? What's it doing to your diabetes? I mean, the thing is, like we talked about in the past, I'm going to talk about just type 2 diabetes right now, but type 2 diabetes used to be called adult onset diabetes years ago. It used to be the
Really?
yeah, when I was a kid.
I think I've only ever known diabetes as, like, I have ever heard of diabetes as either type 1 and or juvenile diabetes or type 2.
Type 2. Yeah, so type 2, I mean, it's been called type 2 for a long time, but a lot of times, adult onset, the idea was that old people got it, and usually old people got it only, right? Now, young people are getting it, younger and younger and younger, right? And for the most part, type 2 diabetes is your body's inability, right, to process glucose effectively, and it's insulin resistance that's gone crazy. The insulin doesn't do the job it used to do in your body, so now you need more and more insulin to lower that blood sugar, right? Because you're eating carbs, and it's funny, when you become insulin resistant, insulin doesn't do the same job. It takes more insulin to do the same job as it used to lower your blood sugar, but it's because your cells in your body actually become resistant to taking in that glucose as fuel. So believe it or not, you have a fuel shortage. You're surrounded in fat, obese people, right, like me and a lot of other people, surrounded by fat, but because you've been eating carbs for a long time, you're in a fuel shortage. Your body can't tap into fat because it's insulin resistant, right? Or even it's just used to getting all those carbs. So when people start eating fat and lower their carbs, first of all, they go through a keto flu, which a lot of times is really just electrolyte imbalance or water or just detox. It's sugar detox, right? Once you start tapping into your fat cells, you have, I think I calculated one day, I think I had like 100,000 calories. You don't need to eat, and there are stories out there that medically supervised, this guy's gone on a fast for 6 months, a year, and as long as you're getting your nutrients, as long as you're getting your electrolytes, your body fat also stores vitamins, right? I mean, and yeah, it's interesting, man. It's
That's the thing that really clicked for me in terms of understanding why keto works, and why it's effective. In that, if your fuel source is glucose and carbohydrates, you continually need to eat to replenish that fuel source. But when you move to a keto diet and your body is using fat as fuel, then when you don't eat for a long time, it'll just tap into your fat reserves. So you become self-sustaining.
you're fat adapted.
It takes a while to get there, but once you're in that state, you're in such a more optimized position to go longer stretches without having to eat. Because if you don't eat, your body is going to have fat on it, unless you're these gymnasts who have 2% body fat or whatever. Most people have enough fat stores on them who are on keto that you can just get that nutrition, and that's why the weight, if you do it properly, the weight just melts off of you when you're in full blown ketosis. Because if you're not eating, or when your body needs more fuel, it's going to take those fat cells and convert them to ketones and process it. And also, like, I don't know why it seems so, some people struggle with doing keto in terms of knowing what to eat. And to me, it just seems so simple. Like it's easier said than done. But as far as knowing what you can eat, like
As far as
if
its
it doesn't
complexity, it's not complex.
complexity, if it doesn't exist naturally in nature that a caveman could have done, like breads and flours, you need refineries and all that stuff. That like gone. Pasta's gone. Like it's meat, vegetables, fruit, and nuts. Things that you could either kill and eat over a fire, or you could pull out of the ground or pull off a tree or pull off a bush.
Yeah.
Easy, done.
Yeah, exactly. You can pick it or kill it or catch
So
it.
that's the one thing that I kind of dislike about what I've seen with some things about keto, where it's like people are trying to recreate everything that is in normal society's diets, like keto pizza, keto bread. It's like I get that you're trying to enable people to have options, but if you're it's like when vegans or vegetarians have like tofurkey or you know what I mean, and try and recreate me. It's like when you talk to the people who are hardcore vegans or vegetarians, they say, I don't want to eat something that tastes like chicken or steak.
Yeah.
The whole reason I'm doing this is because I don't want to eat chicken or steak. And it's like keto is not about trying to recreate bread and whatever. And for the most part, there are some creative recipes. I'll give them that. But like you're kind of, I feel like it's almost like a crutch.
Yep.
It's either you have to embrace it as like, I'm not going to eat these breads and all these, pastas and all the things that have and sugars and desserts, because you've got your keto cakes and your keto, this and that. And,
yep.
and they don't taste terrible, but it's like the whole point of this is to embrace a lifestyle where you're eating whole foods, natural foods, and those just kind of, I think, are a vehicle for kind of holding on to the past lifestyle that you're trying to shed.
Yep, absolutely. I was just about to say that, like, it's a good, like I said, it might be a crutch, but a good bridge, right, to get people from that end to this end. But you're right, it can be held for a long time, and a lot of times I see people that are stalling or have seen stalling on their weight loss, or just not seeing any grounds at all. They're baking keto stuff every single day. I'm like, you can overconsume any food. You can overconsume bacon and eggs. I challenge you, but you can overconsume bacon and eggs. I really do challenge anybody to overconsume bacon and eggs. It's nearly impossible. I've had 10 eggs a day, many, many days. But the keto thing, like you say, it plays also into the idea that we don't like to change, but at the same time, once we adapt, we're in our way. We can adapt to anything over time, right? It seems like, but at the same time, we like our ways, and we like to, I think it speaks into the addiction of sugar. It's like we're just find ways to get something that's close to it because we innately realize how powerful it is, right? That, subconsciously we realize how powerful it is. That we're like, okay, well, at least if I can't have a cupcake every day or a bagel every day, because a bagel is almost like a bagel is almost like a muffin. It's almost like a cupcake in my eyes. So if I can't have my bagel every day, what am I going to have? Well, I'll have this keto bagel. Sure, that will do the trick. And I think it is healthy as a step for a lot of people. But, unless you're in the business of, if you're a baker, great, switch to keto if you want to do that, because it's a good thing. It's still better than crap. Right?
Well, this is something that Melissa and I always have little arguments about. Whenever I do the grocery shopping, which is most of the time, if I'm going to buy bread, if I buy bread, I'm just going straight to like the Villaggio or the artisan, like just the Italian style bread, basically white bread, right?
Yeah.
And Melissa's like, you should buy whole wheat bread. It's like, babe, if you think that the difference between this white bread here and the whole wheat bread means anything, it absolutely doesn't. You know what the healthy bread is? No bread.
Yeah.
Or the bread that, like I said before, that dry whole grain bread that when you like try and crumple it in your hand, it literally is going to fall apart and crumble. But you take the whole wheat bread or even the whole grain breads, the Dempsters and all that stuff, all of those breads I can take in my hand, scrunch it up, and it'll become like putty, which means that all of it, that's all just BS. This is whole grain that's better for you. It's the exact same nutritional info. So if I'm going to have something that's not good, I might as well go for the best one.
If you like the best taste, whatever you like the taste of. If you've already committed to the idea that Yeah, you're
There's
right.
going to be bread in the house this week, and it's going to be the good
Right.
Italian style loaf, not the not the shitty tasting whole wheat one that really is like a percentage maybe better for you, but in the grand scheme of thing, they'd be like saying cancer is better than AIDS.
Yeah, exactly. You got to value the value. Exactly. Um,
So I always find that interesting. It's like that's not going to be the thing that tips the scale going from
yeah.
whole wheat bread to from white bread. It's far from that. You've already lost.
And it's true, and maybe that does speak to the idea that people need, like, or a lot of people, right? We really do need something to bridge us from that gap, because it's a leap of faith, right? Like you said, not only because of the programming, but even a lot of people deep down inside. And for a lot of people, maybe that explains their vegetarianism or veganism. Even a lot of people, they feel that maybe eating fat, too much meat or too much fat is gluttonous. It's like we're a pig. We've been, and that's the thing too. Pigs, for example, have been demonized, right? You're a filthy pig. Are you kidding me?
Oh boy,
The whole world eats pigs.
pig is delicious. I didn't
And
realize how much I like. We didn't actually eat a lot of pork growing up. Like it was more beef, chicken, and lamb.
oh, lamb, I love it.
Lamb is, I mean, but yeah, you look at more than half the world. You go outside of North America, pig and lamb and goats are probably consumed more than pigs, or the pigs and lambs and goats are probably consumed by more of the world than cows and chickens.
Oh yeah.
But you have to go outside North America.
That's right.
You go outside North America and everything is a pig or a lamb or a goat. Middle East, Europe, Africa.
Yeah. Well, it's my understanding anywhere that it basically, if they're, if they don't eat pork because they're, Jewish or Muslim, everyone else eats pork. Essentially, right? Except people that have given it up. Why? And that's people that have given it up, And that's another thing interesting about the whole, we don't eat this or I don't eat this or whatever. It's a very, very fortunate, it's very, it's a lucky thing for us to be able to do, to not eat meat or to not, you know what I mean? And without all these processed bullshit foods, who would have given you the idea to not eat meat, first of all? And if you don't eat meat, like traditional peoples around the world, right? They're not vegan, right? They eat dairy, they eat cheese, because they realize the nutritional value of dairy, right? And so some people eat eggs as well, but you can eat cheese and eggs, and it's basically not a vegetarian diet in my eyes. But I don't have to label it as that's a healthy diet. You can eat cheese and eggs.
In so many parts of the world, Africa, Europe, Middle East, when they get an animal, they eat that whole animal.
Yep. Where I came from, where your parents came from, same thing.
You ate them. You drank the milk. You ate the cheese. You killed the sheep that it
Even
came
here.
from.
Yeah.
And you made souvlaki with it.
Exactly.
And you ate everything from the animal. You didn't waste anything. But
yeah, you reminded me of something. It's and if you kind of back up the scope or kind of back up a little bit, it's not just the Greeks, it's not just the Italians, even it's the people here, right? It's just 100 years ago or less, right? Different parts of the world, different parts of the world kind of, at times here, of course, up until a little while ago, but not even, the immigrants here, the settlers here, but also the natives, they didn't have any of this bullshit. They didn't have these crappy foods that the industrial food complex kind of, kind of built. But yeah, and it's nice that, and it makes so much sense. Like on one hand, people say, let's get back to nature, let's get back to whole foods, right? Who's going to argue with that? Anybody you must be against humanity if you think that possibly a packaged food is going to be better than natural food. How?
I've never actually heard anybody argue the whole food the argument.
I guess it's just the nuance of what's your definition of whole food, right?
Yeah,
well, that's the problem. Which side of meat or no meat, fat, sugar,
Yeah, I think everybody can agree that if you eat whole foods, not processed food, I don't think you're going to get much resistance from most people. And another part of this, though, like when you say about you said about even not just people in Europe and Africa and like the outside of North America, I think back to my wife's grandparents on both sides, who were here, either born here on Melissa's dad's side, who were both born here and were farmers.
Okay.
They both grew up as farmers. or on Melissa's mom's side came here and also were farmers. Even then, when they didn't just eat meat and vegetables and fruits, they had, the wife would bake breads and pies and all that stuff. It was the lifestyle too. When you're farming for 16 hours a day, you have those liberties to eat things like bread and pies, or like.
But even like the worst food back then is nothing compared to the worst food today, right? Like you said, the pie today or the pie back then is probably equivalent to the best healthy vegetable, because there's less nutrients these days. You know what I mean? Almost like that, I wonder.
Well, the interesting thing too about it's not just whole foods. It's also eating foods that you can make yourself. If you were to bake a bread at your house,
yep, we did that last week.
The ingredients of that bread, the ingredient list is going to be what? 5 things?
I'll tell you now: flour, water, yeast. So if you want salt, but that's it. That's all you need.
Right. And if I look on the package of that, either the D'Italiano or the Bellagio bread, how many ingredients am I going to see? What, 30?
Yeah, probably.
So even just the act of making their own baked goods, those farmers that were our grandparents that lived on a farm and they grew everything that they ate, and they were healthy as a horse, but they ate everything because A, they didn't have a sedentary lifestyle, and B, everything they made was made in their house. So there was no preservatives, no extra processing. The most processed thing would have been the flour and the sugar, but there was no preservatives or all those other crazy things in there too. And even that goes a long way too, making things naturally in your home in a way that if you were to make pasta's what? Eggs, flour?
Yep. Water. Salt. Yeah, I mean, and when you do it the most natural way, right, in the most old school way, that is the healthiest way to do it. So we made bread last week, and I didn't feel great at the end of the week by eating it because I ate a lot of it, but I did it, and I also ate a ton of butter with it, but you do it the homemade way, you do it the natural way with 2 ingredients. It's way better than the stuff at the store. It's way better than the stuff that takes 30 ingredients and it's got all this crap in it. But yeah, like it's the food they ate was better, right? The lifestyle they had. But like I said, and a lot of times people say, "Oh, don't move more, eat less." That's just not what I'm trying to say. But yeah, their lifestyle was, they didn't have cars, they weren't super lazy. Not that everybody's lazy here, but it's funny. We in the last 50 years, it seems more than the last 50 years, less than 50 years, we're probably the first generation in history that ever would, or the first, that group that ever encouraged their society to exercise. Are you kidding me? Right? If you exercised back when our peoples, right, were the historic peoples, you would have been a gladiator, or not a gladiator, you would have been a warrior, right? A soldier, right?
It's absolutely true.
A soldier, you wouldn't have went to the gym and throw kettlebells like a CrossFitter. And nothing against CrossFit, a little extreme, but you would have, if you had the ability, right? If you were big and strong, maybe, and your dad said, "Chris, it's time to go." Right? It's time to go, or you go for your voyage or whatever. I mean, if you had an interest in sports and the Olympics and things like this, right? This is why sports were invented. The idea that we need to get outside our house and walk, that's good because we should be outside anyway, right? We shouldn't be doing this inside. But the idea that we need to go to a gym, right? And I used to work at a gym. Lots of people I know used to do, and I'm still into fitness myself. But the idea of go somewhere to sweat, and come back and be in our cave is so ridiculous, right? We should be out and about. And but it's funny when you do tap into that when you do find that right recipe for you, or you do find the right type of diet and balance that works for you. I try to avoid saying balance because it makes it moderation. I don't even know what moderation means. But when you do find the right recipe for you, it takes very little effort in the exercise department. That's interesting, right? You don't have to bust your ass at the gym to lose weight. You lose weight in the kitchen, right? Not in the gym. You get big muscles in the gym and you look good in the gym, but you really get that weight loss in the kitchen.
I've heard personal trainers at the gym, like who train friends of mine, say that, and these are personal trainers that are like cut, like what do you call it? Like bodybuilding competition cut. Tone that have said that it's I think the ratio that I heard from them was it's 80% diet, 20% working out.
Yeah, I'd even say more. I'd even say 90%.
I would say it's even higher. But even from somebody who looks like the epitome of what we call healthy and fit and strong and muscular, to even call out the fact that you lose the weight and with the diet,
Yeah.
and then the exercising is the complement to that.
Well, exactly, because really the only way to gain the weight in the first place, right? Why do we all have to lose weight in the beginning, right? Because we all have too much, or we all gained weight. And if you want to look at this, if we want to talk about how do we gain weight in the first place, it's just excess calories, excess meals, excess feeding, driven by, for a lot of people, carbohydrates, right? It feeds the hunger, it feeds the machine. And so it's funny, like, we wouldn't have even been in this problem at all if we didn't have, like I said, if we ate the amount of carbs and the amount of refined sugars that our great grandparents did, or even our grandparents did. We don't need any of this. You don't need supplements. You don't need anything. It's crazy.
Well, also their lifestyles were, they were just more active, and I even hear about it from friends of mine who played hockey growing up.
Yeah.
Played hockey competitively. They always talked about how whenever they would go and play the teams that were in towns that are just farm towns, those are the toughest teams to play against, because all those teenage boys,
yep,
all they did was
country boys,
throw barrels of hay or like work around the farm. Like they didn't have TV or video games. It was hockey.
Yeah.
You wake up at 5 in the morning, go do your chores, and then you're at the rink for 7, and like, and then you go home and then you do the rest of your chores. So they were always get the shit kicked out of them when they go.
Well, yeah, and it's interesting you say lifestyle. It's interesting you say lifestyle because it plays into an element of lifestyle that I haven't really thought about. When I hear lifestyle, a lot of times I kind of think, okay, it's not just about exercise, but it's about, you're just busy. They're not sitting at home being bored. And a lot of food, a lot of your intake is when you're bored. Even kids, a lot of times,
you're grazing.
You're grazing, exactly. And we're not grazing. We don't have the equipment to graze. We don't. We have a very simple digestive system compared to a cow, right? And we need the food in a way that's fairly easy to digest, right? And all that fiber, it's, I mean, it's crazy. Even like you said, so many myths have been busted through this whole transition, right? The idea that you need all this fiber. Nope. You still poop, no fiber. Here's proof. Like many people poop every day with no fiber, and it's like, it's funny.
Vitamin C. It's like there's more vitamin C in green vegetables than there is in orange.
Absolutely.
Oranges.
Yeah. And there's even vitamin C in liver. I mean,
is there?
Absolutely. There's a fair amount of vitamin C in liver. Fresh liver is pretty good. I mean, it's not for everybody, but we adapt to anything, just like anything. Our palates adapt, right? If I'm eating Pop-Tarts every single day for 10 years and you give me a pork chop, and I've never had a pork chop for 10 years, I probably won't like that pork chop. But you give me that pork chop for a couple of days or a couple of weeks and I enjoy that, I'll never want to go back to that Pop-Tart probably, because especially if you know what it does to you, right? It's funny because
I'm disgusted just thinking about Pop-Tarts. That's one thing that I love sweets, but that was one thing I was never able to get into. Pop-Tarts.
Oh, you're good. You're better off. I was the type of guy, Chris, and I'm still the type of guy that if let loose, with no repercussions, no ramifications to my health or anything, I would eat everything, all the candy, like, all the pizzas, like, and like you said, being a foodie, that's something where I've even had to struggle, to be honest with you. I mean, you're among my best friends in the whole world. I've struggled over the years of even battling with the idea of, am I truly a foodie anymore, right? Do I like to cook? I love to cook. Like, when I cook, I enjoy my process of cooking. I enjoy cooking it. I enjoy seasoning, and then I enjoy the meal, right? But I don't think about food all day long anymore, right? And because of that, I don't think about meal prep all day long anymore. So oftentimes I'm thinking, holy shit, do I even if we're having if I'm having a dinner and I'm with my brother over, what are you going to make for your brother? He's coming over or whatever. Great, I'm doing 2 roasts maybe. I'll roast and a chicken, whatever. A couple meals. They're so easy. You season it, throw it in the oven, right? Where years ago I'd be like, well, I gotta make this salad, or I gotta make this dish, or I make this rice, or this vegetable, and all these fixings, which are great and they're part of the cultures, of course, right? But I almost feel like those came in when we didn't have meat through the years, right? I mean, and we're so lucky that we have meat, and we've always had meat. I mean, people say, the cultures that, and like you said earlier, we didn't grow up with a lot of beef. Your family's right background, my family's background didn't grow up with a lot of beef. It just wasn't around, right? That's why we made sausages in the winter, right? That's why they did the meat they did have. But we have enough meat, right? We have enough meat in society. We throw out more food than we like. It's crazy. I think they say we throw out a third of the world's food supply or something. We throw it in waste or something like that. But then how are people starving? So it's a political issue, right? It's not a food issue by no means, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and once I've realized, and I think when people start thinking of the idea that you don't have to eat all the time and all that stuff, it just makes it a little easier. And we can still enjoy our food, but there's a lot of the economy is riding on this addiction, I think is what I'm getting at.
Well, there's enough documentaries that have come out about the FDA, and even when it comes to meats, just the way that meats are mass produced. You know,
Processing.
Processing. You know, the people who are against eating beef because of the effects on the environment, that's because of how cows are being raised.
That's right. This is the better way to do it.
Cows that graze in a field don't produce the kind of methane gas that goes into the air, and as opposed to cows that are fed corn.
Yeah, exactly. There's so much nuance to it, and also like North America gets shit on a lot of times because we mass produce things, we're super efficient on things, and we're money. But it's interesting because of money, because of how efficient our economy is, right? We actually do things a lot more efficiently. So there's less cattle that we have in America, and we can basically harvest the same amount of cattle from America and Canada, or in Mexico, or America and Canada specifically, then it would take maybe 10 times the amount in India, right? Or 5 times the amount in Mexico, or four times the amount in Brazil, because of maybe their methods and like you said too, is that because maybe their methods aren't as efficient, it sometimes gets kind of hijacked with the idea that, oh, because we mass produce things here, it's just always worse. But a lot of times it's like, it's not worse here. It's so weird because, when you think of the feedlot in the US, right? And the feedlot is not the best scenario, of course, right? You don't want everybody in the feedlot, but it turns out that cattle spend 80% of their life just on grass, out on pasture anyway. So it's only the last, 3 months, maybe 4 months that it is in the feedlot. So it's not great and it's not ideal. But it's like, but even that, like it's nuanced, right? We need to look into that. We need to research in it. It's easy to say beef's bad. No, it's not the cow, it's the how, right? And a lot of people have said that it's how you do it. Just like saying, you can say it's not sugar, it's what kind of sugar. That's half real, right? But it's also the amount of sugar too, right? So, but with the cow, it's like, how are you raising cows? How are you raising cows, right? And what are you doing? What are you feeding these cows? And then, you also there's a big push, and I'm happy to see that there's a big rise and a big growing community of the grass-fed, open pasture, more sustainable, more more humane kind of raised. That's the way it's supposed to be anyway. That's the way cattling was, or ranching was, rather. And just the idea that, like, it should be no surprise to people that ranchers and cattlemen and cattle people, they love their animals. These people aren't vicious people. These people are in the business of, you don't raise cattle for generations, you know what I mean? If you hate animals, it doesn't happen that way. But I don't know. I mean,
that's where these big industries though it becomes a very political thing. The grass-fed farmers and free-range chicken farms, the people who are doing things the natural way of farming animals. These aren't the people who are the problem.
No.
It's the big poultry farms and cattle farms that are run by these giant corporations that have massive political swing, are embedded with the, what do you call them, the FDAs, or all those boards in the states where, like, they can basically do whatever they want. They can mass produce chickens, they can mass produce cows, and I'm sure you've heard of where they basically have the tube that goes into the cow's stomach that, like, feeds them corn so they can just get bigger and fatter.
Yeah.
And, I mean, like, all these things, like, this is not it's not healthy.
Yeah, it's not natural, right? But it's funny because sometimes the narrative gets hijacked, or the argument kind of gets hijacked by the anti-meat people, or the vegetarians, or even the vegans, because they're saying, because there's examples of how it's done wrong, we can't eat meat. And that's completely bullshit. And we need to kind of call that out, right? Just because you're doing something wrong, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it at all. Right? If you're going to wash your ass wrong, don't skip washing your ass. Just wash it better, right?
Yeah.
And I think that really matters. And because the voice of the anti-meat is so strong, that it's easy to say, well, can't we just have something else? If you're not going to hurt a cow, but still get all the nutrients you can from broccoli and potatoes, well, isn't that okay? The problem is you can't. And the problem is you're not going to fix, you may, from scratch, you may be able to do it, like you said, with the right dairy or cheese or whatever, like a lot of cultures do. But if you have a health problem, you have a weight problem, you have issues you want to attack, and you're looking for a solution, you're not going to do it eating high carb, right? Because you eat fruit and vegetables all day, that's high carb. There's no getting around it. And no vegetarians and vegans that I've ever talked to have been able to come to grips with the fact that all vegetables and fruit are high carb. So explain how can they be the supreme food for us, the optimal food, if they're mostly high carbohydrate? Where do you get your fat from? You get your fat from, in the plant world, you get your fat from avocados, coconut, and olives, right? The good fats, palm as well, palm date, better. Those are fruit. Those aren't vegetables. So there's no natural vegetable oil. It comes from a seed if it's vegetable oil, or corn, which is a grain, right? Not a seed. Beans, soybean oil, which is a legume, right? So it's like the natural fats are animal fats.
It comes back
natural
to
fats are animals.
If it always just comes back to the simple litmus test of, can I pick this off the ground or from the tree, or kill an animal and eat it?
Yeah.
And beans, our ancestors didn't take beans, soak them for 24 hours, and then cook them, right? Like the vegetables they ate were carrots, peppers, tomatoes, things that just naturally grow. Naturally grow. So like even when it comes to vegetables, there are things that we've grown to know and to eat, like beans and all those other maybe even potatoes, like like fresh garden vegetables. I don't think there's anything wrong with those. Sure. Fresh garden vegetables, anything that you'd have in a salad. But then when you get into your beans or your root vegetables, I don't know. That's
well, and that's the thing with salads. Like say, so if we can definitely agree on the fact that a salad is very healthy, right? Fairly healthy. You have leaves, you have some vegetables in there, you have maybe some peppers, some whatever you have in there. I mean, the more I think about it, the more I think, well, what can you put in it, right? But then I think, how much of we're looking at, if you want to look at the content of nutrients, how much protein is going to be in there? Right?
Not a lot,
right? And how much fat's going to be in there? If you drown in olive oil, you can get a good amount of fat for olive oil, and olive oil is a great fat, but you need more than that, right? You need protein, and you're going to need a fair amount of broccoli. You're going to need a fair amount of beans or something. Like you said on beans, though, our ancestors have figured it out over thousands of years. You have to soak this. You have to painstakingly process this. This was the first processed food was beans and grains, because they knew it was toxic. Like beans are toxic. They have lectins in them, and certain grains or all grains you have to grind them. Right? You can't just pick some wheat and eat it. Good luck, right? So yeah, it's crazy because our ancestors figured that out, that you have to detoxify these plants to eat them, and it makes sense that they would have probably only eaten those things when they've either had to resort to them, right, or kept them as an emergency food. If they had, and you ask any, especially old people, ask any of your aunts or uncles that are older, that are still around, your grandmother, ask you, if they had lamb and pork and beef and chickens and eggs and sheep fed and all the vegetables they wanted, do you think do you think they need to soak beans for 3 days? Do you think they need to, eat bread and wait, a whole 24 hours to rise this bread, and great old sourdough bread? And there's amazing, right? There's a reason why the longer the bread rises, it's better, right? Because it pre-digests that food, that gluten, right? Or the sugars, the yeast, eats that, pre-digests it, makes it easier for you to eat, right? It takes time to rise and all that stuff. But yeah, they would go to meat, the reason why they say the kings and they eat the meat, because it was the best food. It was the best,
I mean, both my, like I said, both my parents came from islands and fish. They're all fishermen, but it still comes back to the act of, you catch a fish and you eat it. It's the same as if you were to kill a pig. It's the same thing. It's an animal, and you caught it and you ate it. And people have been doing that for hundreds, if not thousands of years. You catch a fish and you eat it.
Forever, right? Because what did they do before that? Forever. As long as we were humans, we were catching animals. And and everything I'm looking back now and everything I'm researching, there was really not a time that we were eating not animals, right? Even chimps even eat animals. It turns out some chimps hunt monkeys. It turns out, right? So the idea that like gorillas don't, maybe, right? But we're not gorillas. Gorillas have these huge abdomens, right? They eat a ton of food. They eat a ton of fruit, a ton of fiber. All that all day long. All they're doing is sitting and eating. So they have these big barrels, right? They're they're strong as they're strong as gorillas, but they're not they don't do what humans can do, right? They don't build cities.
Different species. I mean, that also though goes to show you that how even gorillas gorillas don't eat other animals, but they basically they eat greens all day long.
Yeah, they're fermenters though. They're almost like cattle that way.
Yeah,
they have these big guts. It's weird.
Gorillas eat greens, and they're one of the strongest animals. Basically, just goes back to the fact that processed food doesn't do you any good.
Well, exactly.
The biggest thing is all it is. It's convenience.
Well, exactly.
It always comes down to convenience.
Oh, and money, right? So if you can make money off people's convenience or off sell convenience.
It's cheap.
It's cheap.
We were talking about the United States. The United States is a very weird place where you can feed a family for like $15 at a burger joint.
I know.
And if you take that $15 and try and buy fresh fruits, vegetables, and meats at a grocery store, you're not going to feed one person with that. Yeah. So the United States themselves as a country have created this system where we want you to eat the super cheap, super processed foods. And then you can get into conspiracy theories of you eat food that makes you sick, and then therefore you need the pharmaceutical companies to give you drugs to help with your health problems, your high blood pressure, your diabetes, all that stuff. And it's this vicious cycle, and the United States is a crazy place, and I'm happy we don't have that.
No, I mean, to be honest, we're not that far behind, right? We still have many issues. We still have the obesity issues. We still have diabetes issues. I mean, for a lot of reasons, our population is different, right? Of course, we're a lot smaller here in Canada, but you're right. I mean, even in Canada, it's similar, not as bad, I think, but it's not cheaper to buy fresh fruits and vegetables. Maybe the same.
Oh no, those
definitely not cheaper.
Those are still going to be more. Those are still going to be more expensive. But I find that in the States, it's always we're the same as the States, where it costs more to buy fresh and healthy whole foods. But in the States, they're at a whole other level when it comes to their cheap food. Their cheap food is cheaper than ours by.
That's true.
Just an absolute long shot, and it's crazy because you think if it costs this little to buy. It costs even less to make. And what are you really eating?
So here's your question. What exactly? And why can't we give real food? The thing is funny, and there's a lot of kind of misconceptions as well. Like something like McDonald's burgers, at least in Canada here, right? Just beef. A&W burgers, just beef, right? A lot of places just have beef, maybe salt or whatever. But the misconception is because fast food is bad for you, and we all know fast food is bad for us, but the whole picture gets lumped into one, right? So when you get a burger with 2 pieces of bun or 2 buns, you usually get fries and it's a Coke with that. Let's just say that's the standard fast food, meal.
It is cheeseburger, fries, and a Coke.
Exactly, and maybe even a milkshake. That's common as well, right? So, and then the pies are common, and everything is common. So, what the best part of that meal is the burger.
The actual burger patty, of course.
So everything else though makes the cheeseburger, it demonizes the cheeseburger. When it's not the cheeseburger's problem. In fact, the cheese and the burger are probably the 2 healthiest things on that, Yeah. And for a lot of people, it's funny because there's a lot of people that don't even do well with vegetables. So you can't say, oh, the vegetables are great too. Sure, some people the vegetables are great, some people are not. But it's the fries. And I'm learning a lot more than just the carbs in the fries and the sugar and in the pop. It's the carbs, it's the carbs in the fries cooked in these shitty industrial oils. That's what it is too. These industrial seed oils are really bad. They're high in omega-6 fatty acids. They're pro-inflammatory. And if everybody's eating French fries and drinking Coke, your sugar goes up, your inflammatory markers go up. There's diabetes.
We never really cooked much with vegetable oil or sunflower oil.
I don't.
It's olive oil, right? I mean, Greek.
Yeah, exactly.
Or
lard or butter or whatever.
That was Melissa's grandparents. Lard was everything. They cooked. They made the pie crust out of lard.
Delicious.
They used lard to everything.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until like the last few years that I've really realized just how toxic basically all your vegetable oils, your canola oil, vegetable oil,
I know.
all that stuff. And it just, well, think about it this way. When you can heat those things up to such high temperatures,
Yeah.
like you can only get olive oil so hot before it starts burning. Same with grapeseed oil, I'm
Yeah.
assuming. It's the same thing. So what does that say about your food when it's that resistant to fire?
Yeah. It sounds like it's an industrial oil.
Right. You know what I mean? Like the oil you're
Mechanical.
cooking your food, the oil you're cooking your food with has the same temperature bearing as jet fuel. You know what I mean?
After you're done stir fry, you're gonna put in your engine oil. I know it's yeah, it's crazy. And like you said, the natural butter burns, olive oil burns, right?
Yeah.
And it burns, and when it burns, it's less healthy for you. So that's why you're not supposed to fry with olive oil, right? I mean, that's why you're not supposed to, yeah. It's and if you are going to deep fry, which is something that's of course not the best, healthiest choice. People say you should be deep frying with lard, with beef tallow, like the way that we kind of did. We've been deep frying for a long time, right? Or hot oil. We've been cooking in hot oil for a long time. And when you're using natural fats that are the saturated fats, turns out the saturated fats are the best. Isn't that crazy? The saturated fats, the ones that they told us were going to give us heart disease and cancer and diabetes and obesity. They thought, eat fat and you get fat. I get why that sounded convenient for a lot of people. Like if you were on the anti-fat train and fat on your belly, fat on a steak, makes sense to us, done deal.
It goes back to my whole, these things can't exist together. You either eat fat and no carbs and sugar, or you eat carbs and sugar and no fat.
I know. Or yeah, I mean, one interesting thing when you mentioned that, one interesting thing that always comes to mind is that your body can obviously make fat. We make fat we're very efficient at creating fat and storing fat. We take sugar, we make it, right? In our liver, we store it. Our body actually also can make glucose. And a lot of people don't know that, but your liver actually produces glucose, right?
You would only know that if you were either on the Atkins diet or the keto diet, when they talk about how if you consume more protein than your body needs, your body will take that protein, it'll go through glucogenesis, and it'll turn the protein into glucose. Boom.
Exactly. And then it's funny, and the more I read into that, the more I'm learning, at least my understanding is that it's a little more nuanced as well, is that you're a lot of times you're safe because some people say that it's kind of a demand driven, if you need more glucose, your body will produce it. But it's also a thing with eating meat is that there's a less chance you'll overeat meat because it's satiating. Meat and fat, like, you know what I mean? Like, how many steaks can you eat? Like one? I ate two. Like when I was eating heavy meat, and I was eating like one meal a day, and sometimes I was even doing a diet where not a diet, like a fast, where I was eating one day and then I was taking a day off. I could only eat 2 steaks. Like, and I love steak.
I find that when you're eating, whether it's steak or chicken or just meat, if you're eating meat, it's more of I feel like you have a much more real time sense of how full you are.
Yep, those
versus
hormones.
You could eat, when the moment that you start feeling full, if you're just consuming, let's say you're eating a bunch of steak, you're not going to go over versus you ate 2 plates of pasta when the first plate of pasta was all you needed, but your mind hadn't caught up, or your brain hadn't caught up to your stomach yet to say, I've eaten enough. Whereas when you're eating, I feel like when you're eating meat, when your body says I'm full, you might have crossed the threshold, but you're not 2 times over because you ate 2.5 plates of pasta because it takes so long for you to figure out, hey, I'm full.
Exactly. And I think for a lot of people, they never get full because it doesn't trigger those hormones. I think it's leptin and ghrelin, these satiating hormones, right? And if you don't trigger them, if you don't get the food in so if you're eating food and it's going in your gut and your butt, I mean, some of your satiation is going to come from if your stomach expands, right? But if you're eating and it's not triggering these hormones that get triggered with fat and protein, so you're hungry, you're literally hungry. Your body's not getting fed. And then by the time it does get fed, or by the time it does get a signal of satiation, one of the signals may be stretching into the stomach, right? And then you're sort of hungry for a minute, and then maybe your body figures out an hour later, maybe this is why you get a crash. Not only a blood sugar crash, maybe you get your brain realizes, holy shit, he just ate a load of food that didn't give me anything, right? It didn't give me anything, so now I gotta eat some more. When you eat a steak, your body's like, I'm done. This guy did me good today.
Yeah. I've noticed that. one other thing too that I'm lucky is that I never liked drinking. And I
Oh,
know that
you
lots
are
of
like,
people who do keto, especially if you're a beer lover, you're giving up one of your vices.
yeah,
Like,
let's talk about that. How did you
you know,
stay away from alcohol these years?
I just can't stomach it, Carlo. Like I
Yeah,
just outside of the fact that I don't like being in control of my what do you call it, of myself.
yeah.
Um, I just
Out of control, you mean? Yeah, you don't want to be out of
I
control.
know I don't want to be out of control. Like I just can't stomach it. And some people have actually said to me, "Are you sure you don't have a gluten allergy? Like when you drink beer, if it's that much, like if you feel that sick when you drink it, like maybe I don't know. It is liquefied wheat or whatever, right? I mean,
Yeah,
but I don't know. I just hard liquor is the same way too. Like I just, oh, I cannot stomach it.
yeah.
I tried because you
Well,
think you grow up
experiment like everybody else. Yeah,
the rites of passage. You turn 19, right? It's like, hey, I can drink now.
yeah.
And that was another. Maybe that's part of the reason too. I wasn't one of those kids who like tried to go into your parents' liquor cabinet and. I was a good kid. I was scared of breaking the rules in that sense. So I don't know. Maybe if you start drinking when you're 13, you live up north and there's nothing to do.
I know a few people like that. I think. Just kidding. I sue
but
people. I love you all.
but I just I've never been able to stomach it. So like the desire is just absolutely not
Yeah.
there.
Well,
Just
I mean,
like
you really kind of missed a bullet, honestly, because um, livers or alcohol is processed by your liver, right?
mhm.
Same place that carbohydrates are processed, right? Fructose is processed, in fact, and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is a thing now. Fatty liver disease was only around for alcoholics before, you know, and back to for a second, back to you saying like to like your wife's grandparents and turn of the century and everything, farming and everything. There were no 400-pound people. There were no 350-pound people back then, right?
Well,
And not to there were circus. I mean, I would have been in the circus at 330 pounds,
the
right?
only, the the only person that I ever saw in any of those old
No
photos
offense
of
to anybody
any
else, just me, by the way.
uh, that was fat on either side of Melissa's grandparents, who were both farmers, was the my it would have been Melissa's maternal great grandfather. He was a big man, but I think he like was lost his leg or something, so he just sat
Whatever,
and
yeah,
do anything. Right? You had 17 kids, and they were all farmers. It was just
yeah,
okay. Like
yeah,
great, you learn how to walk,
yeah,
pick up a
exactly.
rake, and start troweling the soil.
Yeah. Well, exactly. I mean, like, and that brings another question in my mind. Like, why are there? I mean, it's like on one hand, it's $1 billion question, but on the other hand, we know the answer. Why are there so many sick people? Why are there so many obese people? Right? It's not that we just eat too much. Well, sure, we do eat too much, but it's because the food that we eat is making us eat too much. And it's so weird that the more food we eat of this certain type of food, the more
It's
food
what
we.
we eat.
It's
The
what we
thing
eat.
that I can't stand about is people who try and give an excuse. I'm very
I know.
I'm very very honest and self realized over where anywhere that I am in my weight loss journey.
Sure.
It's 100% of what I do. People
Yeah.
are like, oh well, my doctor told me this or that. It's like no. Like
Yeah.
stop making up excuses. Like there's no medical condition that's going to cause you to be 400 or 500 pounds or to gain weight. It's all about what are you eating,
Yeah.
and to a
What are you
lesser
eating?
extent, what is your lifestyle?
Yeah.
Like it's no, you have nobody to blame but yourself for what your current weight condition is.
Yeah.
Yes, you could have grown up in a household that fostered bad habits. Let's say you grew up with parents who were really, really obese. I didn't,
Yeah.
but just, there are those cases too where, part of your parents do have a responsibility to teach you healthy eating habits, and that is part of it. But at the end of the day,
Yeah.
it does come back to what are you putting in your body?
Absolutely. And that it reminds me of something oftentimes people say, well, this runs in the family or this runs in the family. You know what runs in the family is bad habits,
Exactly.
right?
That's
And also what runs in the family is information, bad information or good information. And it's funny because on one hand, we want to say, like type 2 diabetes has some genetic, I think, component to it, or some familiar component, they say, but I don't really know. I mean, I don't really fully believe I buy that, because if it's reversible and if you can get it, well, you know what I mean? So the idea is that, like, if we, you know, if we ate better food, right? If we treat ourselves better, or if we took better care of ourselves, right? We, I think we're going to see things that we thought are hereditary not be hereditary, right? Things that are well, you know, you know, habits, like I said, habits are hereditary, and you know, and the behavior is hereditary. So
That's the only thing that's hereditary when it's like, oh, you know, obesity runs in the family. It's like, no, no, no.
if we came from people,
Bad habits.
exactly. Think about this. If we came from a genetic line of obese people that were sick, do you think we would have got here? We came from
No,
fucking healthy people. We all came from super healthy people, right? If you think, well, before medicine, survival of the fittest, survival of the healthiest. Go. Oh, so Chris, we're back. Yeah, basically we were talking about, like, just, you know, good habits being hereditary as well as just ailments and things like that. It's funny, like, you know, when you also bad information, right? So, and it's just a generational thing too. I think, you know, I just had a thought when you're on your, kind of stepped away for a second there, but it's like TV ruined our health. Advertising, you know, eat this product, eat this product, eat this, and maybe the internet through podcasts and things like this are helping to fix it, because it's really information that people need now. So if I was 15 years old and you were, I mean, you were 15 years old, the internet was around, right? But when I was 15 years old, the internet wasn't around. So if I wanted to find out about health or losing weight, I would ask maybe a gym teacher, right? Which I probably did. And he probably said, do more push-ups. I don't know. But, you know, or I would, you know, ask your friend or your mom, like your dad. I don't know. Who would you ask? Or you go to the library, you know, maybe even your doctor, but I don't know what your doctor would have even told you, right? But now, right, you can check on the internet. And yeah, the internet is pretty crazy because there's maybe a lot of, you know, conflicting information, but at least the information is out there. And I truly believe that information will, you know, the cream will rise to the top, right? Good information will find its way out there because everybody wants it. But yeah, it's like, you know, like good habits, you know, like we also need government to, you know, change things as well, because it's funny. A lot of people say, you know, it's Canadians, Americans, whatever. We're just bad. We're just bad eaters. We don't follow the guidelines. No, we actually do follow the guidelines. They said eat more carbohydrates. We ate. They said eat less fat. We ate less fat. We've actually eaten less protein year over year, less fat year over year over the last 2-3 decades, and we're getting sicker. So, you know, we do listen to the guidelines, and that's why it's so important that the guidelines do change. At the same time, we're at a weird change right now. We're at a weird point where people are saying, fuck the guidelines. If they're not going to change, I'm going to do it myself.
Well, I mean, again, it goes back to kind of play devil's advocate. The guidelines, again, become into the eye of the beholder. Like, some people might think you need to eat grains. So somebody might think, I'll eat the worst possible thing that I could eat that's constituted as a grain, versus, you know, somebody who does eat their own baked bread, but they eat one slice of bread for the day.
Yeah.
Versus somebody who eats, you know, a bunch of toast and then some sandwiches with bread, and, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And portion control.
Well,
Because,
and I think that's, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
most people who follow the guideline probably, and are healthy, probably follow the guideline to the portions too. I think North America, for sure, we're the worst for portions.
See, but I think you're right. And I think that I think the portion, the issue with our portion control is married with the issue with carbohydrates, because with carbohydrates
100%.
come a bigger meal. Yeah.
100%. Anytime that we had people from our Barcelona office come to Waterloo at my work, and we would go out to eat, like, they would eat half their supper, and they were shocked. They're like, how come the food is like, how come your portions are like, this is 2 or 3 meals in Spain. Yeah. What's going on here?
You're right. That's a complicated issue. I wonder if it's two-sided. I wonder if it's we're just America, bigger, better, sell, right?
Freedom.
So freedom. If you want to sell, put it. If this guy wants to eat 2 pounds of steak, let him eat 2 pounds of steak. But the other thing I think, though, is like you said, it's kind of hijacked with or implicated with the carbohydrate things. That why are this? If you're eating just steak, right? How much steak can you eat? It's funny. I actually tried that. I ate a steak, right? Like a ribeye. Like, I love ribeyes. So I ate a ribeye. I'm done, right? I had a couple French fries. my daughter was eating French fries. I had a couple French fries. I could eat more after. Holy shit. You could eat more after you eat some carbohydrates. It's an appetite stimulant, right? It's crazy. It's the opposite of fat when I eat it. So after I eat a couple French fries from hers, then I can eat more steak. Oh my God. You know, talk about screwing up your signals, right?
Yeah, I love steak.
Oh, I do. We got when this is all over, buddy, we have some steaks.
Yeah, I figured out. I finally got my barbecued steak down to a method I can just rinse and repeat, and it's amazing every single time.
Perfect. How do you like your steak? Now that we're asking.
You know what? I'm anywhere from medium rare to medium. Anything past that is no good. I don't like it super rare, but like medium rare. If somebody can do medium rare, that's actually medium rare, I'm good with that.
A little pink in the middle, yeah.
Yeah, I usually, whenever I go to a steakhouse, I say medium, because then if they undercook it, it's medium rare. If they overcook it, it's medium well, which at that point it's still not too bad. But if I can get somebody who knows how to hit medium rare, like you know, it's good. Whereas I don't know if your dad was like this. My dad just chars the shit out of everything. Like the concept of a medium rare steak. And my dad loves to barbecue. My dad loves barbecue, but like that generation, just the concept of medium rare, like not fully cooked meat is just, they're like, you're gonna get sick from this. What are you doing? Look, I get it. Chicken, you need to cook chicken.
Yeah.
Like steaks, my dad just cooked the shit out of his steaks. My dad, though, his saving grace with his steaks is the same olive oil, lemon juice, salt, pepper, oregano that he marinates the steak in.
Perfect.
He'll create a second marinade, I think, without maybe the salt, or maybe with this, I don't know, but he takes basically the same marinade, puts it in a shallow dish, and then he will take the steaks right off of the grill and put it into that.
Oh, nice.
Lemon, olive oil, oregano, and it just soaks it all up.
Beautiful.
And
That's
then,
beautiful.
actually, if you go to, there's a bunch of Greek restaurants that do it that way. They have their meat cook it, or after it's off the grill, it sits in the same not the same marinade, but the same ingredients.
Yeah.
And it just helps reinvigorate. It's really good.
Oh, that's awesome. But you're right. It's funny when you said, as soon as you said about your dad, it's like growing up as well. My dad, and even my dad being a chef, and he's listening to this, he's watching this, he's gonna laugh. But yeah, growing up, I would never eat a medium steak or medium rare. Right? It's well done. There's many reasons. I mean, I think maybe grew up with the old days where meat wasn't always maybe safe to eat rare. I don't know. I think beef was probably been safe to eat rare for a long time. But also, you know, but then at the same time when they're making pork, try some rare, see how it is, try some raw. But I think the other element as well is that maybe the steaks, I don't know, maybe, you know, they didn't have as choice cuts where you would eat something rare, right? Like some cuts of steaks aren't great on the steak, on the barbecue rather. And some cuts definitely don't have as much, you know, fat on them if it's really lean. I don't know, but yeah, I've joked with him oftentimes about eating, you know, well done as well over the years. And I think I've brought him down to medium over the years. So I think we're okay.
My dad still will not eat.
So, well, that's the thing too. And there's so many good marinades, right? I think the Greeks, the Italians, everything is all about the marinades. You know, the oil. Well, first of all, garlic, salt, and oil. Forget about it. That's all you need. but it's in everything, right? And that's, you know, yeah.
And I don't know about how your dad. My dad will marinate. If my dad's barbecuing something, he'll marinate it for 24 hours.
Oh, it's the best. He's smart.
Or even longer, 2 days. Even he'll just marinate the crap out of it. And I think part of it comes from, like, at least with some, like, pork souvlaki is usually made with like the cheaper cuts of pork.
Sure.
But you marinate it for so long that it breaks it down. The salt and the lemon break down, and it becomes super tender. So I think that's where that comes from. Yeah. Nowadays, when my dad makes souvlaki, he'll get like the pork loin, the premium pork loin, and cut it up. We'll still marinate it as if it's like a cheap pork shoulder or whatever they use to make the souvlaki. But I still can't get my dad to understand that you don't have to char the shit out of your meat to. I don't know if it was the wars or whatever. Like they grew up and then meat was.
Be safe. Burn it.
Yeah, just
burn it.
Well, I remember I think Italians are the same way, that not only do we overcook the meat, but like most vegetables, you cook them until they are just completely completely overcooked and soft and everything. So
Yeah, exactly. Just like a shell of their former self.
yeah. Although I will say though, actually, I'm trying to remember eggplants or not. What they're where they land on the spectrum of nutritional value. But my dad makes an eggplant stew
Oh yeah.
that I guess was common. Like his mother made it and was common on the island, and that was like a big part of their sustenance when they didn't have meat. Eggplant.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, it's a lot of people eat eggplant, right, in Europe. I mean, Italians eat it. But
Yeah,
I'm not a big fan of it, but a lot of people like it.
the only way I like it is if it's like roasted.
Yeah.
Because in general, just I think it's
What's the dip dish that's made with
baba ganoush.
baba ganoush? That's the one. Yeah. I mean, the Italians they kind of jar it and pickle as well, and it's something I like it if it's like jarred and pickled. I like that.
That's the other thing that our parents did and our grandparents did. They pickled everything.
Everything. Well, I mean, you didn't have vegetables 12 months a year, right? And that's the thing.
Well,
Any fruit that you didn't eat, my understanding, any fruit that you didn't eat after harvest, you could preserve. You preserved it, and then you ate your preserved fruit for the winter, right? And then you same with your meat. I mean, you can make cheese whenever you can get milk, of course, but the meat, when the animal was ready to harvest, you took the meat, whatever you ate fresh, and then you preserved it, you hung it. I mean, sausages will get you through the winter, right? Salami, there's a reason why we're still eating salami today as we did 10,000 or 5, maybe a couple thousand years ago, right? It's
delicious.
yeah, it's delicious. And it actually, it's funny. People are like, we looked at it. I grew up thinking that it was a vice. I grew up thinking the salami and prosciutto and mortadella and capicolo was something that we should eat sparingly because it had such a high fat content and salt. I grew up in the 80s, right? In the 90s, fat and salt's bad.
Yeah.
Now I realize this stuff is my staple. These foods are my staples. And you try and do as much homemade as possible. That's the key.
Have you tried to do your own sausages yet?
I did my own beef sausages last year and then beef jerky as well, like a beef jerky version of a sausage. I haven't done anything with pork yet, but I'm going to do that. I would definitely want to do just regular sausages. I want to do beef jerky again as well. I love beef jerky. Oh. I did kind of like a beef. It was almost like a jerky, but a sausage jerky mix. I kind of used it through a sausage machine and then dehydrated them, so they're little sticks. Really good.
I've been meaning to ask you. I feel like the very first time we came over to your new place, and you're showing me the fridge because you had like just when you look in your fridge, there's a lot of meat.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like the average person's fridge. Do you take your roasts? I thought you said you take like your big roasts and you'll slice them like an inch thick or something like that, and you'll throw them on the barbecue. Do you do that?
I have done that. It depends what kind of roast you're using, but yeah, if it's a kind of roast that you can cut it, it'd be good enough marbling. You could do that. A lot of times that's like a prime rib maybe or a prime roast or rib roast. But yeah, I've done that before. You could do that. I've even sometimes I've even had that because beef's expensive sometimes, right? That those fast fry steaks. I've had a bunch of those before. Where when I started keto, actually that was my go-to. That actually got me to paleo keto transition. Was have a salad, have a couple of steaks, cook them on the barbecue, and just kind of chop them up. It's kind of an easy salad and steak, salad and chicken.
That method of cook a steak and then take the same put together a new marinade of the same thing you marinated in, those fast fry steaks.
Yep.
I've seen chefs like Gordon Ramsay or Jamie Oliver. They take those thin fast fry steaks. They have to cook super fast, put them back into the marinade. Yep. Obviously, again, new marinade, same ingredients. Yep. And it just, because it's so hot, it just opens everything up and it absorbs all that marinade and gives you that flavor and tenderness too that sometimes those cheaper fast fry steaks don't have. But if you know how to cook it, you know how to marinate, they taste just as good as a $20 steak from the butcher.
Oh, absolutely. Like you said, you and if you have good olive oil, right? After that steak is done, chop it up, then you pour the olive oil raw on the steak. That's like real olive oil. You want to take advantage of it raw, right? Absolutely. And that's when it's the most nutrient dense for you, and you don't have to worry about the smoking point and everything.
I forget what nutritionist or even doctor I was listening to, who was basically, I've always known that olive oil was good for you. As a Greek person, it cured everything for you.
Like Windex.
And I never understood the Windex thing. That was not a thing in my house.
Mine was vinegar actually. We use vinegar and water that was our cleaning solution. So I don't know if there's any correlation to that, but
No.
probably.
But you know, the first time, I'll get back to what I heard the doctor say, but I remember, you know, when in the playoffs, in NHL playoffs, when they go to double, triple overtime, because there's no shootouts. The guys, when they go that long, the guys that are on the ice will lose, like some of the guys will lose upwards of 10 pounds in a game because of how much they sweat, right? You're doing interval, hockey is basically interval sports, right? You go on the ice for 60 seconds, sprint on skates, and you just drip and sweat. I heard the first time I saw as an adult hockey games go that long, the players interviewing, you know, before the next game, talking about how after the next day when they were doing training and stuff, they were doing shots of olive oil and eating avocados to gain back the weight that they lost because they would just lose so much weight in those games that go 6 periods. And I thought, okay, well, clearly, right, that right there, I thought, for elite athletes to be saying that they're doing shots of olive oil, clearly it must be good for you.
Yeah, I think olive oil has been touted as a medicine forever, right?
But it was within the last 6 months that I heard it was either a dietitian or I'm pretty sure it was a doctor saying that basically food, whatever you eat, is basically just a vehicle for himself, is just a vehicle for getting olive oil into himself.
I think it's maybe Stephen Gundry, I think, or Dr. Mercola, one of those. Yeah. One of them says it's lettuce is a vehicle for olive oil or something.
Yeah, basically, it's just like whatever. Anytime I can do something to get olive oil in my system, I'll do it.
You know, it's funny, and I from the perspective that it's fat, and I 100% agree. I tend to look at that. I think even better than olive oil, I think is like animal fat for me, like beef fat, right, or beef tallow, because if you're looking at it from an energy source, you know, saturated fat is stable. The monounsaturated fat that comes in olive oil is very good as well, or it's very healthy and vitamin E and all that stuff. But yeah, you're right. It's like, if the main goal is to get that good oil in, right, the good fat in for the right fuel, and what do you really need all those other carbs for?
Yeah.
Right? You know, marinate some meat in oil and butter. After I'm done my steak, I usually put a stick of butter on it. Not always, but sometimes I put a stick of butter on it. It's delicious. You ever have it?
I know a lot of guys who not even guys who do keto, but just guys who are steak guys, like they're passionate about their steaks. Even the high-end steak restaurants, they all put a thing of butter on top of their steak.
Yeah, for sure.
It's finish it off. They'll take garlic and herbs and make their own butter, and then freeze it, cut it in a disc, and put it on there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you go to like a Ruth Chris, or you go to bed. Exactly, nice places. Well, and it makes sense. Like it goes hand in hand. I mean, it's like a cheeseburger, right? You want dairy on top of your meat.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks so much. One thing I want to talk about is the last thing I guess I want to talk about of all the things, and thank you so much for your time, dude, is the whole Corona thing, man. I mean, we could probably talk for hours on this too, but how's it been for you guys? I mean, it seems like you're managing. I think we saw Missy run by a second ago. But how are you guys holding up?
You know what? Overall, I think we're doing good. I mean, you know, being married to a hospital worker, a frontline worker, like any day, and maybe I'm desensitized to it. Any day, you know, she could come home and be like, well, I was, you know, exposed to it, or like I got coughed on, or just whatever. And, you know, luckily it hasn't been like that. She's lucky where she is in the operating room, but all in all, you know, it's good. Some days are harder than the others. Today was a little bit more, I don't know, just felt more isolated today, and maybe it's because I've been Melissa, like I said, she worked a double and with the kids for a day and a half all by yourself, and you have you know, no adult contact really until, you know, I talked to you today basically. So, you know, but like you said, we could talk about this for probably another 2 hours about like what's going on, and is what we've done enough. And believe me, I'm the first person who thinks social distancing is great and everything, but the next time we have a pandemic, do we need to slow down the economy, grind it to a halt, or do we need to get better at preparing for these things so that we can just be aggressive and
Yeah.
can combat things. But yeah, you know, it's well, we're surviving. I'm so done with it though.
Yeah.
How about, I mean, you and Fatima are both working from home.
Yeah.
So to me, that just seems like a foreign concept because Melissa, you know, she's worked in the hospital as a respiratory therapist and anesthesia assistant now for the last 10 plus years. So like, she never works from home. So
Yeah.
having two people home all the time, there's good and bad because you get in each other's hair
Yeah.
too easily. And so I don't know, what have you found has been the biggest challenge?
Yeah, it's been interesting, man, for sure. Like, I mean, like you said, like Fatima and I are both home full time now, and luckily, like I said, we're both working remote, which is great. We're still working and everything, but it absolutely is challenging. Not only are we around each other 24/7 now, right? And the last time we were around each other 24/7 was before kids, right? And it was before dating, and or you know, when we're sort of not actually when we're dating, we're never around each other 24/7. We always had your own place, and then once you moved in with each other, of course, you know, got the house and everything. But you know, it's been a long time since we haven't had, or since it's been a long time, I guess, since we haven't, you know, had an excuse to get out of the house, whether it's anything, you know, working on a daily basis all the time. So it's interesting, right? It's testing your relationship like anything. It's amazing because it's bringing up some amazing things. You know, it's letting you spend a lot more quality time with our family, which is great, right? Which is good. I mean, I'm the type of guy where if we're gonna fight, but let's get it out of the way. Let's talk about it, right? And you can't, you know, no stranger to you, of course. I'm sure, you know, the idea that let's not, you know, hold it in. I mean, but this, like I said, it is challenging, but I really do love it. It's great, even not like I said. It's not only challenging having Fatima around; it's great having her around as well, right? I mean, she's my partner, she's my wife, so the kids as well. It's great. It's also challenging, as you know. You know, Lily's 9, Violet's 4, so like they're at different ends of the spectrum. Lily's doing a little bit of that schoolwork now online. You know, and Violet's not really getting into it, but it's keeping her busy all day. Like, my God, you can imagine well, I know you do know with your son, probably both your son and your daughter, just running around, right? Keeping them busy. One of the things that it's really kind of shone a light on for me is how we just want to eat, right? Kids especially, right? They're eating, they're hungry, they're grazing all day long, right?
Like every time they ask me something, like didn't you just eat like 5 minutes ago?
Like I think they ask for food as they're finishing it, and it's like it almost plays into the idea of like, holy shit, you know, this shows me the fact that even everybody's own house, we're not eating the best food. We're not eating the best food as a society, right? If you know, because I know there's been days before this, after even during this, where the kids will say they'll eat bacon and eggs for breakfast or something, right? Or they'll eat some, you know, not a lot of junk or anything throughout the day or whatever. And their behavior is different, of course. They're not looking for food, but if you give them, you know, even some simple carbs that are like something like fruit, honestly, doesn't fill a kid up, right? It's great. There's some nutrients to it. It's going to give them some calories, right? But it's not going to, you know, it's not going to really, they need protein. They need, you know, the kids need protein, right? And they're growing. That's the other thing we really talk about. But carbs and fat, right? They're the fuel, but the protein is the building block. Protein is the actual thing that we have a requirement for, right? There's no dietary requirement for carbohydrates, but there is a diet.
Emma's funny. Like Ben just wants to eat junk food.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That age. Emily or Vi's the same.
Right? Like he's 3. He'll be 4 in a couple weeks. But Emma's funny because she loves fruit and vegetables, and it's funny. Some days she'll just eat fruit, which it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's just like I think about myself. I'm like, I never would have been like, yeah, just give me cut up some kiwis or cut up a bunch of strawberries, and like that's gonna be like my lunch.
Yeah.
But like for Emma specifically, like I'm trying to be pretty cognizant of like making sure that she doesn't you know, just eat junk. You know, like tell her if she wants to have like some chips or something, it's like, okay, we're gonna put in a small bowl and we're gonna portion this because like you guys don't get to go play outside as much in school, or like I always joke about how, you know, I would pack Emma's lunch every day because Missy has to work for 7 in the morning, except for the week where she works in the afternoons and at the hospital. And I'd look at her lunch and like, man, Emmy eats healthier than I do, and I make all her food.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like it's like you said, it's reminding or it's shining light on. It's really making us take a look at what do we eat, right? If we're home now with our spouses more than before, and then we see what we're eating more, right? We see what we're shopping for more. See what we're spending money on, and it is tough because now it's in my face, right? Anything that I think that our kids are eating, good or bad, I'm seeing it all now, and I'm seeing it. So it's like if I would be hard, I have to be hard on myself. If my kids are eating it now, I'm giving it to them, right? And I see the struggle. I see the struggle with the behavior, right? I see the struggle not only if they eat bad food, they're bad. That's one thing, but I see the struggle with me trying to satisfy them, right? Me making cookies because I think it'll make them happy, right? Or me cutting up strawberries every 40 minutes because I in the back of my head going, if you just ate fucking bacon, you wouldn't be hungry, right? So the days they do eat bacon, it's better. It's great. They don't eat bacon every day. It doesn't matter, right? Or if they did, it's great too. But Lily, like I said, she's 9, so she gets it. I mean, she gets the Fatso radio thing. She's cognizant. She understands. But even for a 9-year-old, right? She's like, she impresses me. She's like, oh, maybe we shouldn't have that. I'm like, oh, okay, bless you. You know what I mean? If your 9-year-old's telling you she doesn't want candy, that's, you know what I mean? Give that kid a pony, right? But like you said, yeah, I mean, Violet's 4 years old, and that, a lot of it is like the stimulus part, right? At that age, if they're not going to be eating, they're going to be maybe learning or playing or something. They got to do something, right? They're not good at sitting still. And, maybe this is a good time that, to teach all of us, right? Kind of how to sit still and how to just kind of, I don't know, feel balanced all this all. Maybe this is kind of the next segue of what we're going to talk about, I guess, is like some things are going to change. And we talked about this the other day, right? A lot of things are going to change. Some things permanently.
Yep.
And for the better. Like if it's going to take something like, it sucks that it's going to take something like this to halt the economy, to slow the economy down, and obviously people losing their lives. That's the most tragic thing of all, people getting sick. But what do we need to learn from this, right? And I think what we need to learn is that enough is enough as far as spending more time with our family. Like, we've extended each other, or we've extended ourselves so much, right? All this, I know, and I love all these extracurricular activities that all the kids do these days, right? But nobody's doing them right now. This is the way it was 30 years ago. Right?
Yeah. I think that's one thing missing. I would always go back and forth on is, she would sign the kids up for basically full-time extracurricular activity. And it's like kids need to be bored sometimes. I mean, right now it's like, holy crap.
Yeah, it's a good test for sure. Me and Fatima are the same.
But I mean, like, it's like let your kids be kids. Let your kids just be bored and let their imaginations, be the thing that entertains them. Or like, when you're running around, you just run yourself ragged. If you have your kids in something like 3, 4, 5 nights a week, it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, and the stress that it causes us as parents, holy shit, right?
I don't remember doing that, or even having friends doing that, when I was in a kid, like back in the early 90s, late 80s.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you had maybe one thing that you did.
Yeah. Like everybody had a buddy or a bunch of buddies that played hockey, right? I grew up with, and tons of my buddies played hockey, but yeah, it wasn't crazy.
Hockey, like I had guitar lessons once a week.
Yeah.
Or before guitar lessons, I played basketball once a week, I think, once or twice a week, one practice, one game.
Yeah.
But like, that was it.
Or like you said, or even like we kind of hinted to, like high school sports, right? Or just sports in general, a part of your school, high school sports, or in college sports. Like it's weird. I mean, I don't know, maybe part of it is like, the NHL, people want to become the NHL, NFL, people want to go to the NFL, and how ironic is it that right now, none of those people's careers, right, really matter. Them as people, of course they matter, just like you and me, but their careers don't matter. I don't give a shit who's throwing touchdowns. Nobody's throwing touchdowns right now.
Every time I see an article about the NHL has proposed this for how, I just think I forget. I'm like, oh yeah, hockey exists, and I love hockey. I love hockey. But it's just like, this is not important right now.
No, it's not important right now at all.
If I know, to the NHL, it's their $1 billion business. It's not just, can we resume because, whatever. It's they got to think about, they're the owners, and the owners have shareholders, and they have to make money, and they have, things, bills to pay. But it just seems like such a no. Like, whether or not we crown a Stanley Cup champion for the 2019-2020 season, like, that does not matter right now.
No.
We gotta fix We got to get rid of this goddamn virus,
Yeah.
and then we got to fix the economy.
Yeah. Well, just imagine, Chris, for a second, if the guys in the NHL, the guys in the NFL, NBA, all these major sports, if the surgeons, the anesthesiologists, assistants, nurses, doctors, everybody in healthcare, everybody working on health, not just viruses, right? The health, if they made a fraction of the amount of money that we're willing to piss away in all these sports and all these things, obesity would not be an issue, right? It's a man-made issue anyway. It's a disease of civilization, right? Like, how could you?
Well, that goes back to my earlier point about, I'll be the first one to say, like, the people who protest the social distancing, like, I think just they're so misguided. Like, right now, this is our only mechanism to combat this, but that doesn't mean this is the protocol that needs to be in place.
Yeah.
Shutting down the economy, millions of people losing their jobs. This is a very reactive way.
Yeah.
This should be our lesson, that we need to know how to fight pandemics and diseases by being armed, so that you don't have to shut down the economy.
Yeah.
You don't have to isolate people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we know what that looks like yet? No, but we need to figure it out after this is over, so that we don't have to go through this again. And you're 100% right. Like, for me, the thing that, hockey players are probably the lowest paid of professional athletes. Mm-hmm. So when I look at guys like Justin Verlander, like some of these pitchers who signed $300 million contracts, and all they do is throw a baseball. They literally just throw a baseball. Like, yep. It's like, yeah, and
not that many times.
No, yeah. So you throw every game? No, every 5 or 6 games.
Don't overdo it.
Hurt
your shoulder.
Yeah, but so what? They pitch 30, 40 games a season. Yeah. But I would always have to reassure myself, when I was younger and I was moving up, in my career, every time I'd get a raise, I'd kind of feel this imposter syndrome of, I can't believe I'm getting paid this much money to do this. And I was never, even the most probably highest paid person on my team. But then I think to myself, like, just wait a second, like, you're feeling kind of insecure about, this $5,000 or $6,000 raise you got. There's a guy who's throwing a fucking baseball making $30 million a year.
Yep.
And he works.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you know what? It's not his fault, right? Whose fault?
No. I mean, if somebody, I would do it too. I do it for half.
That's, it's our society's fault, because we've somehow, I don't know, the powers that be, it's just human nature, right? We're attracted to shiny things. We're attracted to money, and we're, it's wild, man. Like, where could we? There's so many other areas we could, spend our money.
When Babe, I don't think, baseball being the oldest sport in North America, I don't think when Babe Ruth played, like, I'm sure they probably did okay, but like, baseball players back when Babe Ruth was playing, they were making $30 million a season.
They were not superstars by any means. No.
Like, they were just, they probably got paid a decent salary, no more than maybe an accountant or whatever. But nowadays, no, like you.
I'm really interested, man. I'm curious to see what's going to happen with these sports. Like, it's going to be a long time till you get 20,000 people in an arena again.
Yeah.
When are you going to get that in an arena? And at the same time, are we going to have this scare every year? I don't know.
It's very interesting how, I'm somebody who's always been a cleanly person. I'm very adamant about washing my hands. I don't just go and then, 2 seconds underwater at that point, it's for show.
Yeah.
The guy who rinses his hand for 2 seconds, that's for show. That's the guy who at home, he just walks out of the bathroom. I've been a very clean, hygienic person. And one thing I have noticed is how this has, in a good way, brought a lot of people to be more cognizant about personal hygiene. So in that sense, it's good. But gosh, I don't know. Like, I just saw somebody post saying that, 2020 has been so screwed up that, the U.S. confirmed that UFOs exist and nobody cares.
Yeah. Exactly. I just saw that report as well. That's crazy. That's how messed up it is that we're like, oh, okay, what's next? Aliens? Great. Unicorns?
Yeah.
It's crazy, man. I don't know, like, one of the things that, like, I keep on thinking about as well, and it's by no means am I blaming anybody that's unhealthy or anybody that's sick on any type of illness, or I don't want anybody to be anybody to get sick or die, of course, or anything. Good time to remind everybody, I'm not a doctor, we're not giving medical advice, but one of the things I keep on thinking about this whole coronavirus or any kind of virus, right, is our resiliency. Why is this such a risk? This is such a risk, and this is so scary to our population. The real reason, anybody, or for most people who know, I think, about anything, is because we're sick. If we weren't a sick population, we would not be worried about this as much, right? The outlying would, that's it.
Well, and here's the thing too, like, again, this is going to sound maybe flippant or insensitive, but like the people, most of the people who are dying from COVID, the majority of them, they are old, they are sick, or they are young and they are sick. Any of the professional athletes, where it's been NHL players, NBA players, we've not heard of one of those people die. And in fact, the hockey players specifically who have gotten sick, and actually the basketball players, because I followed those stories close, because that was during the beginning. Most of those guys had very mild to moderate symptoms, and they recovered like this because those guys are in the pinnacle shape of their age, and you know what I mean. Like they're
in great health.
You can't get healthier than a professional athlete.
You hope, exactly.
You're elite.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be elite.
Yeah.
So it definitely plays into the, okay, well, why are people dying? I mean, Corona is so crazy though. We've talked about this before, that
we don't know.
It hits so many people so many different ways. You could get it and you'd have a cough. I could get it and I could be on a ventilator in 3 days with organ failure, sepsis, and it's like, why this reaction for him and why this reaction for that? It doesn't have the what do you call it, the consistency of other viruses. Everybody kind of deals with pneumonia the same way, and you know what I mean, like a sinus cold, it hits, it's a general pattern of this happens and then this happens, and then you're better in this amount of time, whereas it's a coin toss.
Well, everything I've been reading, it's kind of scary, man, but very scary, not to kind of, but everything I've been reading, everything I've been seeing is basically pointing me to the direction of, it's people with like metabolic issues, right? People that have issues, and all of us, not all of us, sorry, many people. I think I saw a study yesterday or read an article that 86% of the US population have some sort of metabolic issue, which basically means like 14% of people are healthy, right? Metabolic issues could be hypertension, diabetes, right? Any sort of, these are, like diabetes, for example, is a huge underlying condition, or a huge factor for so many comorbidities, right? Hypertension as well. And
well, in the US too, it runs more than any other country. The US.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's no offense to the US, it excels, but I mean, they're the fattest country in the world, right? I mean, and not just because, that's the thing about diabetes too. It's not just with weight. You could be there's many type 2 diabetics out there that are not even overweight, right? But they're type 2 diabetic because they can no longer manage glucose, right? So and that proves that it's not just weight. It affects so many different things. And in my mind, the proof that it affects things is that the removal of all these things fix a lot of things. So what can that mean, right? It's not just a coincidence. Right? If you take out something that's causing you problems and those problems go away, you can be pretty sure that may have a contributing factor to it. So yeah, I'm seeing things that, like, it's people with, at first they're saying, oh, it's only old people. Then it's saying it's only sick people. Well, if you think about it, it's actually a quite scary factor if it is sick people and most of us are sick. That means we're all, most of us are susceptible.
Well, the one of the first things when I finally early on when I discovered, through the different doctors talking about what this actually does and why it's dangerous, and that a big part of it is your lungs get inflamed and they start to break down. The first thing that actually came to my mind when I thought about how your lungs get inflamed is, well, if you were on keto, or if you got sick and you immediately, went on some sort of keto, basically cut out everything.
Yeah.
I bet that would up your chances of recovering more.
Absolutely.
And now
And,
it's Melissa's even told me that she's heard from doctors, and she's in the industry, so she's hearing this right from the sources that they're saying cut down your sugar intake.
absolutely.
That'll help your chances of not getting sick with this.
Yep.
What does sugar do?
Flames.
Inflames.
Exactly. And the other thing is that when your blood sugar is high, you actually have a less of an ability to heal yourself. So the normal mechanisms that would fight this are hindered. Your immune system sugar suppresses your immune system, and we're not taught that. It absolutely suppresses your
Really?
immune system. Oh yeah, it does.
Well, it makes sense. If it's when your body is inflamed, you have to your body wants to heal the inflammation, right?
So it creates more white blood cells. It creates all these armies that go out and try and do it. Yeah, and it's weird that people are getting pneumonia, but not a regular pneumonia. It's not like a bacterial pneumonia. It's not like a viral. It's really weird. Yeah, I don't know enough. I mean, Mrs. Nartise, so she knows way more about this. But even something like oxygen saturation, right? Your lungs, your key, your lungs, oxygen saturation goes up. You better utilize oxygen when you're in ketosis. That's what you want, right? Your mitochondria run better. Just you're just a better functioning machine. So I think that, the best thing to combat corona or any virus, right, or any kind of malady is going to be a clean diet. And I think the corona. I think the keto and even carnivore diet. We didn't really get to talk much about that, but I think it's stuff that's getting you in the right way, or getting people in the right way, because it's taking all the bullshit, keeping you healthy. And I'm learning, and I'm seeing through a lot of examples out there in the world that the human body heals itself. It's crazy. If you take all the bullshit, the body seems to heal itself. Given enough time, given enough support, given enough, I guess time and everything, just kind of a holistic approach where obviously pills, are not going to solve our problems. Pills haven't made us skinny. In fact, pills have probably made us fatter than we've ever been, Yeah, man, I don't know. I think now is more important than ever to stay healthy, right? Or to get on a healthy track as well. And it's, we're at home. Let's do it. Start your diet. If you're going to start on, like anybody, right? A lot of people are apprehensive of starting to diet keto. They worry about the keto flu. You're home. They worry about keto again, diarrhea. You're at home. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter.
This is the best time to, if you're going to start it, you have that ability to start something, especially with keto, where a lot of it is, you gotta prep in terms of you gotta cook your meat, right?
Yeah, prep, exactly. And a little prep goes a long way, right?
Yeah, but it's easier to do that at home.
Yeah, and it's easy. Like once we get going into it, I'm in an easy groove now, or a kind of an easy routine where we do it all the time. But like, what's for supper time? I'll throw a roast in the oven. Simple. You know what I mean? Slow cooker in the oven. If you want vegetables in there, put the vegetables in there too. I'll just put beef, but you put vegetables, do whatever you want. A big roast and a salad. What else do you need? You don't need anything else, right? Like, if you want some potatoes in there, great. I don't know. If Tima still likes potatoes, it's great. I had one whole potato today, one tiny potato, cooled and peeled. I'm like, oh, great. I need a little bit of carbs. And that's the other thing too, is that like, there's nuance with everything. I'm learning as I'm still going through my journeys, that it's not no carbs for me, right? It's just a lot less. There are some times where there's no carbs. There are some times where the only carb I'm getting is from, nothing. Actually, there's often times where my liver is only producing carbohydrates for me. But I'm finding now as well that I'm doing kung fu. I still have a fair amount of muscle on me. I try to maintain a little bit of muscle. You need a little bit extra, right? Sometimes it depends on what you're doing. But the other thing is that, like,
it's a threshold.
Exactly. You find that balance. I don't need the fat. I don't need extra carbohydrates for energy. I don't need the calories, right? I need what glucose might, specifically do. Glucose has a function, right? Restores muscle glycogen, give you a little bit of explosivity if it's whatever. But
everybody has that threshold where, whether it's 30 grams of carbs or 50 grams of carbs or even 100 grams of carbs, where your body will be able to get through that and then go back to using your fat as your fuel source. But it's A, it's knowing that, and B, most people just go way the hell over that.
Exactly. The ideal way is to, at every night, replenish your glucose store or your glycogen stores at night, wake up in ketosis, And then we naturally wake up in ketosis every morning anyway, unless we're metabolically broken, unless we're eating carbs, unless we're eating late at night. But it's natural. I mean, every baby's born in ketosis, right? Like it's our natural state to burn fat, because it's just, I don't know. Like we're adapted to do that. But yeah, man, I guess that's it, man. Stay healthy, right? How do you want to wrap this up? Any parting words for our guests and our listeners?
Have hope.
Yeah.
Have hope. Listen to the experts. And when we get out of this, I think I said this to you before, I think there's going to be just this big sense of camaraderie, and when we all get together again, I think it's going to be a big party. I don't just mean one big party. I just think society as a whole is going to get back together, rejoice, and just the better we can hold out right now, the faster we can get back to normal.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it sounds like we're doing everything right? At least here in Canada, it seems like things are okay. We're fortunate.
I look at the U.S. and I just think, my God, if there was ever something that could have shined a light on how broken their healthcare system is, it was this. When you have cities in the U.S. that have more cases and deaths than entire countries, I mean, good God.
I mean, the population is a huge thing for the States, but you're right. I mean, this is shining a light on everything. And any country that wasn't prepared, you're right. This is coming up. Any country
not just healthcare too, like just basic
food supplies,
universal basic income.
That's going to be on the table. What do you think about that? Actually, if I can get you for a few more minutes, do you think that's coming down the pipe?
You know what? I don't think it's a bad thing. I mean, like there's. I'll put it this way: we would not be the first countries adopting this.
No,
I'm pretty sure that you got countries in Europe, Spain, not Spain, Switzerland, and other countries in Scandinavia that have adopted. Like us, they've got universal health care, but they've got universal basic income, and their crime rates are lower. Their incarceration rates are almost non-existent. Like there's something to be said about this.
Yeah. My big thing with it, my big thing to the people who are against it is, why do you want to not get people out of poverty? You know what I mean? It's not like some people, I think the naysayers will say, well, if we just give everybody money, it's going to get more expensive, so they're not going to have it. You have to make sure it's not like that, right? Yeah. There's a reason why we have regulations, reason why we have government control, step in and do things like that. Because the fact of the matter is that everything is inflated anyway. All the food in the grocery store is inflated, the price. It doesn't, the gas, oh my God. If we're shining light on anything, this shines light on how bullshit price fixed the gas situation is. Yeah. Holy shit. I saw gas with, what was it, 50 cents a liter? Less, right?
Really? That low?
Oh, it's crazy. Like, I was growing up and it was 50 cents a liter, like in the 80s.
Yeah, I remember 67 cents when I got my driver's license in 2000.
Yeah, when was the last time you fueled up? That's another thing. I fueled up 2 weeks ago, maybe?
About that, yeah. Do
you remember what it was at?
I remember I told you. I filled up my CRV and got a propane tank for $50.
There you go. That's crazy.
Which, before that would have been just the gas.
Yeah.
But no, you're right. It's like, in order, look at gas specifically. Yeah. We use this as an example. The oil companies are not selling this gas for a loss. They're not charities. They're far from it. They're the exact opposite. So, you can say the same thing about all the other big corporations. For
commodities, a lot of commodities.
For the poultry industry, the industries that are bombarded by these big companies that do the mass growth, processing. They're in bed with the political lobbyists, or they're the ones lobbying to the politicians. Is having record profits year over year worth keeping the poor, so that these companies and the richest of the rich can stay this rich.
Exactly. So how are guys I think everybody is seeing this now, and this is exactly just shining light on everything. We need to, as a people, then as a society, right, flip the switch and just change it. And maybe this is going to start like the whole, it's funny, but sometimes if you're forced to do something, right? Like, I mean, necessity is the mother of invention, right? So if we get to a situation where I can't find beef at the grocery store, I know exactly who to call, who raises cattle, right? I'm lucky because not everybody knows someone who raises cattle, right? And I'll tell you, and we'll share it, and I'll make a co-op, and I'll buy a cow, and I'll raise a cow. Like, if we have to do that, this is what we're going to do. When people think, oh my God, we're screwed if the grocery stores can't put food on the grocery store for us, go talk to your great grandfather, if you could, right? Go talk to your great grandmother if you could. They didn't go to the grocery store every week, right? They went to the market once a week to get some fresh stuff. The rest they had, right? Or the rest they grew, or the rest they raised. And I think we've talked about this before, but what's going to stop? I think nothing's going to stop us from it. Many people having 4 chickens, many people having, maybe a goat, right? If you think about it, it's not even that hard probably to raise 1 cow. And all the ranchers are probably shitting on me right now. It's hard to raise a cow, I'm sure, but it can be. It can be learned. Of course, it can be learned from the right people, right? From the right ranchers and the right farmers, like my buddy Rick and Lisa Wechter, up in Double D Farms, Double D Pastures. So that's the thing, right? Like we need to go back to it because, of course, we did it.
I can see the cows grazing the parking lot behind Forest Heights Collegiate Institute.
You see from my part
because you forgot to lock the gate.
But if you think about it, I probably have enough property for. I'm just an assumption, right? But if I have 1 cow, right? How much? As long as they have their food, right? And as long as they're grazing, and I don't know how much property I actually need.
I don't know, but I don't think we're ever gonna. I'm maybe it's the optimist, and I don't think that's gonna be our problem. Is the food supply? It's the healthcare.
Yeah.
The healthcare systems, the universal basic income, the
unemployment, right?
The unemployment, the digital transformation of how we work, especially people who work in tech. Lots of people who have LinkedIn have probably seen somebody that they know in some technical role post the meme that's got the checklist of who is behind the digital transformation of your company. CEO, CTO, CIO, coronavirus. So coronavirus is the option that's checked. I mean, that's, I think we've been, we both worked at BlackBerry. We've both worked in tech for the last 15 years. So we're kind of immune to, industries that have not enabled workers to work remotely. But there are so many industries that, we're bound to an office building and an office desk that had to basically pivot on a dime. And now they're realizing, wait a minute, this is 100% possible. So, which then changes a whole bunch of factors too, right? Like
exactly
your transportation infrastructure, all these things.
Just think about back in 2005, 2006, when we started at BlackBerry, we're in the call center, right? Customer service, basically customer care. Every single call center employee can work from home. Every single in the world can work from home.
And at that time, you would have thought that's the crazy. We have to be in this building.
It would have been a dream of ours, right? And you would have almost looked like a lazy dog fucker to suggest you go home and work.
Yeah.
Right. And it's crazy. And you're right. And like the people like me and you have been in the industry, and even the management, upper management, CEOs, everybody, they all know that we could have done this, right? But they didn't have enough pain to push them, right? It always takes pain. Whether it's a financial thing or whether it's just the economy or the world's forcing them. I see the meetings or weekly meetings with our CEO, and he's awesome. He's giving optimistic stuff and where we're going and where we're going to change, and we're going to move things to be more digital. And we're a digital leader anyway, our company. But like even the digital leaders still had a lot of paper, still had a lot of people signing things by hand, still had a lot of people. Now it's gone, and it's great because people who like tech are like, good. We've been waiting for this shit for 15 years.
Yeah, we've been saying this the whole time, and you guys have just been too reluctant for either trust issues or whatever. I mean,
it's a big change.
Most of my family has worked in insurance.
Yeah.
And yeah, even they're working from home now too, and it's like that was unheard of.
Oh yeah, for sure. And like you said, this town, right? It's a definitely a white collar town. I mean, blue collar as well, but a lot of insurance, right? Yeah, it's anybody can work from home now. It's well, I mean, for God's sakes, our kids are trying to learn from home, and this is adaptable too, right? It's not perfect right now, but they can do
No.
some sort of a hybrid system. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I even suggested something, or I postulated something to Fatima today. I'm like, what if they just do 1 week on, 1 week off? 30 kids in the class, 15 come this week, 15 go next week.
Oh, for when they go back
If they
to.
go back, yeah, when.
Yeah. No, you're not wrong, because they were, one of the provincial plans was exactly that, for big office buildings, where you have, they would say, Mondays and Wednesdays, clients 1, 2, 3, Tuesdays and Thursdays, clients 4, 5, 6, and then Friday it's whatever.
And yeah, there's some office spaces that are doing that now. The hipsters have already started that, right? Shared office space. They started years ago, a couple
Yeah.
years back, where like you're gonna rent the desk. I mean, even at companies like yours and mine, we have these hotel desks where guys come in and go. They come in and plug in, and that's possible for anyone. You can, with technology today and the security, you log in, everything, right?
You need an internet connection.
That's all you need.
You
Internet
have
connection,
internet,
VPN.
you have an internet connection, you can work, you can go to school, you can.
Healthcare, telehealth, you could do a lot of things,
Yeah,
man.
yeah. I'm pretty sure I've seen or heard doctors are doing
Oh yeah,
video conferencing to even before this,
yeah. Oh yeah,
to poor areas or third world countries.
yeah. Telehealth, right? Telemedicine.
Telehealth, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, even like the fitness industry, interesting. One of the things that has changed, of course, gyms are closed, right? Everybody's working out at home. You can go online and find your coach and find your kettlebell workout and find your home yoga and everything. And this is good, right? There's a lot of fitness
Look at
instructors out there out of work. Go start Zoom.
Peloton.
What's that, sir?
Look at Peloton. They're the bikes, with the
Oh
big
yeah,
TV on, right? Like that's
perfect.
they've I'm pretty sure they've grown tremendously. But since this as well, they've also taken that app that exists on the bike, on the big screen on the bike, and just put it on if you got a smart TV, I think you can download the app. So
Right.
if you have even just like a stationary bike that you can just at least pedal, you get that person pushing you. But
Yeah, coach.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
changed.
personal coaching, personal training, like you said, now is the time to do it, and this is really is pushing us to the point of technology. Now, the only thing that feels weird about me about this is that, in a lot of senses, a lot of us, a lot of people, we're trying to get away from technology, right? Trying to unplug in some senses. So maybe we need to, as this transition happens, maybe as a society, we'll build in, or we'll build in rather, some sort of like needed unplugged green space. Maybe we'll go to more parks and then turn off our phone. I don't know.
Well, you know what? It's very interesting that you said that, because I touched on it a little bit with, I think when we get out of this, there's going to be this greater sense of camaraderie to get together and just be like more of one as a people.
Like a village.
Yeah. And I think, and just celebrate social togetherness and life. And that sounds really, really just flaky saying that.
You know what? It sounds hippie, but you're preaching to the choir, brother. It's
But,
exactly what it is. It's
but
all about love.
I think this is showing us the value of social interaction. And I think for some people, and you see the memes and you see the jokes where people are like, apparently my lifestyle is quarantine.
Yeah.
But you know what though? Even for those people who are introverted or like
Mm-hmm.
they're homebodies, you still, when things are normal,
Mm-hmm.
even if you are somebody who, I'd rather stay and watch a movie, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't go out much, you still have that ability.
Exactly. And they still have the option. Yeah.
You still have the option. When you take away the option, there's still that you have that element of being confined. And
Yeah.
I think this is gonna. I really do believe. I'm very optimistic that when this is over and things go back to some semblance of normal, the industries that were affected, the restaurant industries, the hair salons, the beauty salons, the barbershop, all these social gathering places, I think they're going to see probably their best months and years afterwards. Like I think every restaurant is going to be packed, and every bar is going to be booming. It's, we're probably months away, and I hope it's only months away, but I think that they'll see those huge spikes. And I'm hoping that translates also to the market readjusting itself. But boy howdy, I can't wait for this thing to be over.
Yeah, I really hope, and I think it's going to too. I think we're going to see the change to the maybe course correct in a lot of ways, right? The industries, there's going to be some industries maybe that are going to go away that we really didn't need. Some, maybe industries we haven't talked about yet, but definitely some places where we've been spending money, spending energy, right? Spending our personal energy in areas that we don't need. And like you said, it sounds like kind of hippy dippy, whatever, but everybody seems to be catching on the idea that now is the time for fucking love. Like, enough bullshit, right? We've been bullshitting, we've spinning our fucking wheels for so long. And it's nice that everybody's catching on. It's nice that everybody's understanding. You have to sometimes laugh, right? You're like, sometimes you're like, fuck, man, you should have saw this 20 years ago. Yeah, I know. We all should have seen things 20 years ago, right?
Yeah, but the necessity has stripped away all the unnecessary things in life right now. And unfortunately, some people, that means they've lost their jobs or their entire businesses. But I mean, I think it's for the greater good.
Yeah, I think so too. One of the last things I guess I wanted to, or maybe not last thing, but one of the things I keep on thinking about with this is that I've always been one of those guys, Chris, that says we're not born to work. I really don't believe that we're born and put on this planet to work, right? It's actually in the idea of what society considers work. Go to a factory or go to something and put your time, whatever. But maybe this will really, really, again, give us another push, another encouragement to call things work that we didn't before, right? To really, or that we did less. Let's really value more things like art. Let's really value more things like music, more things like the restaurants and the food and healthcare, as opposed to things that are just, for a lot of people, just distract us. You know what I mean by that? Like, the old Roman phrase, feed them or give them circus and bread. Keep them entertained in the circus in the Colosseum, and feed them bread. That's a famous saying, right? Bread and circuses.
I've actually never heard that saying before.
Yeah, it's a famous, like, bread and circuses, and distract them from what's going on. And that's a lot of times what's happened in our society, is that over the years, there's the giant elephant in the room. We all know we're fucking sick. We all know the wars are bullshit. We all know we pay too much for oil. We all know we pay too much for taxes. We all know we pay too much for utilities. For God's sakes, we print money. Right? And so it's like, now it's like, okay, enough of this bullshit. What's it going to take? 10% of people to die? No, I hope not. What's going to take 2%?
You hit the nail on the head, actually, on that. Like, at first I wasn't sure where you were going with it, but you hit the nail on the head in terms of, you think about, at least in the news, we only see what we see through the news outlets, but I mean, like, we haven't heard anything about wars with North Korea or wars in the Middle East, or you know what I mean, like, just, or like you said, the gas prices have dropped. So, like, it's really stripped away all these things that have especially, like, for we're talking about conflict in the world and wars. It's stripped away things that have been used as tools by governments, by politicians, to divide people. And right now, everybody is just fighting for survival.
That's right. This virus isn't biased on religion, isn't biased on sex, right? I see men and women die only.
Yeah.
That's it. Men and women, young and old. That's it. People, human beings.
That's one thing that I've always found fascinating and admired about Melissa's field of work. And when she talks about dealing with people, whether it's a CEO or an executive that comes into the hospital, because when she works in Mississauga, she works in an area that's $1 million, $2 million homes are just right around the corner. So there's lots of people who come in with lots of money. There's lots of people who come in with not a lot of money. And that's the great thing about working in medicine. A virus or an infection or a disease doesn't give a shit if you're an executive making $1 million or you make $1.
Exactly.
It has no bias of social standing, and it's the great equalizer.
Absolutely. I was going to say the exact words, is the great equalizer, because it doesn't give a shit how much money you have, and it doesn't give a shit your status, but it seems to the only thing it seems to care about is your health.
Yeah.
And
which is one thing you can't buy with money.
You can't, nope, you can't buy with money. And the people, like you said, who are staying healthy, there's a lot of people that are getting infected. A lot of people are asymptomatic. A lot of people are staying healthy. The ones I'm hearing that are staying healthy and kind of bouncing back are treating or kind of handling it almost like a seasonal cold, right? Or almost like a seasonal flu, even less than a seasonal flu for a lot of people, more like a cold. It's weird. But the coronavirus is a regular flu, a cold that come around every year are coronaviruses. So this is a different type of coronavirus, of course, more dangerous. But yeah, so it's like the people that are doing the best are healthiest, of course. The people that are doing the worst are the sickest, and that's the case with everything, and with everything. So this focuses, like I said, we need to spend more time, we need to spend more energy on our health, and it's just more money, right? The countries need to spend more money on their health, right? Not health care. They need to spend more money on their health. They spend $1 trillion on their healthcare already. They spend $1 trillion on their healthcare because diabetes, because of heart disease, because of hypertension, because of all these cancer even, right? Who knows, right? We've been probably giving ourselves cancer, of course.
Melissa's told me for years, like almost a decade, that the biggest strain actually on the healthcare system is obesity.
Absolutely.
Not just because of like, not the active or the state of being fat, but or obese, but the health complications.
Absolutely.
Which are tons. Most people just think, oh, you could have a heart attack. No, it's so many complications.
It raises everything. It raises your risk factor, and it raises your implications on every single disease you have, for sure. It's a disease on its own. Mm-hmm. So if a disease is a disease on its own, that as a society we've given ourselves, right? And it's a disease, so a disease on our own that we've given ourselves, and it's a disease where your body is lacking nutrients and it's starving. It's so crazy. We live in a world of plentiful. Like we have more food, more money, more technology than anything. And I'll say this as myself, fat people are starving. How does that make sense? We're starving. People that are overweight are starving because they're not getting the right nutrients. Once you get the right nutrients, they lose all their weight. Doesn't, because we can't tap into that. I don't know, man. It's wild.
That just reminds me of, I think it was actually Jim Gaffigan. I love him.
I love him.
He was saying that this is different than what you're talking about being fat and starving from a nutritional perspective. But we have so much food now that, especially our grandparents and parents, their biggest fear fear or shame factor was going to bed hungry.
Yep.
And now we live in a society now where fasting is so prevalent, where if you say to somebody, you know what, I didn't eat anything all day today. To our grandparents or parents, they would look at that as like, oh, you're poor, you don't have food, like, I feel so bad for you. Today, if you say, I didn't eat anything today, people would be like, good for you, man.
That's how fat we are, right? That's how far we've gone. That if you sustain from our crazy world from a day, you get a medal.
Yeah. We have so much excess that, if you can say that I didn't eat today, people will be like, good for you.
Good for you. Yeah, you didn't partake in the poison for a day. I know, it's wild, man. Listen, brother, thank you so much, Chris. I love you, man. Everybody, don't forget to check us out. We're on Facebook. We're on all the podcast apps. fatsoradio@gmail.com. Instagram is Fatso Radio. Twitter is Radio Fatso. Chris, thanks again, man. We got to make this a regular thing. I hope, and we'll see where it goes, man. Thank you so much.
Gus and Guido special.
Gus and Guido. Love you, man. All Peace.
Right. All right.